Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 181 on Sifted Games at SIFTD.net. Yes, we are back after just a few days.
Yep, but a lot of stuff happened in those few
days.
days.
As promised. We did our last show on Thursday. We're back here on Tuesday, and we'll be back on our regular Tuesday schedule probably till the end of the year, I think. But anyway, here we are on Tuesday. We have plenty of stuff to talk about today. There's no shortage of content or games to discuss. We're going to talk about some big ones today. A couple things before we get started. Questions for Pactor Factor are going to be posted on both Sifted and on our Patreon, probably when I get back from recording this show today. So look out for that. Couple other things. We are on iTunes, people. I don't know if you guys realize it or not. A lot of people who watch on YouTube have asked for an audio-only version of GameFace, which I can't understand because you can always just play the YouTube version and just listen to it if you want. But
if you have bad bandwidth wherever you're listening,
that's true.
Or you want to save data cap.
That's true. We are on iTunes, and it would be awesome, even if you guys watch this on YouTube or on Sifted or on Patreon, it would be awesome if you guys could go to our iTunes page and review the podcast. Right now we have like a perfect 5.0 rating, but we only have like 50 or 60 reviews. The more reviews you get, the more you bubble up, the more we can be discovered by people who are looking for gaming podcasts. We'd really appreciate that. Also, those of you who are on Android and have never had a podcast feed of GameFace, that is all about to change. Probably before we do next week's episode, the podcast will be up on Android as well. We're really looking at distributing the podcast out to as many outlets as possible, probably on Stitcher and a bunch of other places, but obviously Android has been the huge hole for GameFace ever since the show launched. So look for that. But again, go on iTunes, subscribe, give us a review. That would be awesome. Look out for Pactor Factor questions. We're shooting the new episodes on Friday at his crib. So look out for that in the next couple of days.
Does he call it that?
What?
The crib.
He does, actually. Yeah. He tries to use street vernacular every once in a while, and I'm not sure why.
Can't use street vernacular. You're on a boat.
Among other vernacular, I might add. It's been a little rough week for Pac. I don't know what's going on with him the last couple months, but
I must have missed that.
Oh, you didn't miss it. You're the one who tipped me off to it.
Oh, that right.
Yeah. So have an interesting conversation with Pac on Friday about that article that floated around about him. We've got a lot of messages about that too on YouTube and on our Patreon. I think most people get.
You didn't say it on Pactor Factor. Leave us alone.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do, honestly. But it's.
You wouldn't have left that in Pactor Factor, frankly.
Probably not.
Not the specific part that people are upset
Yeah, I mean,
about.
It depends on context. I know Pactor really well. I've worked with him for 13 years. So I know when he says stuff like that inflames people, I know he's joking. But when you see it written in text in an article and you just read some of his quotes, you're like, oh my God, did he really say that? I don't know. He has it tough. People come at him from all angles. And at the end of the day, he's just this awesome guy who knows his shit. And he's at the point of it in his life where he's tired of dealing with internet rabble.
Right, but even in jest, maybe don't tell people to kill themselves.
Yeah, it's a poor choice.
In the year of our Lord 2019.
Yeah, even when you're joking, that's probably something.
There are other ways to insult people.
I mean, for instance, we don't say stuff like that. But because I don't think we've reached the I don't give a shit point yet, man. He is there. He's he's about to retire, I'm guessing. He doesn't need to work again. He's
But even when I'm retirement age, I don't think I've lost enough friends to suicide that I don't think that will be my go-to insult.
Yeah,
so.
I hear you. I'm right there with you. I would never say something like that. But anyway, it was a joke and it was in jest.
I mean, other than that, I understand where he's coming from. But
yeah, you could use other words to get the same point across.
Use your words. You must have so many words, like crib.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's what's going on in Sifted Land. The website stuff's still going on. We've had a couple people have issues reconnecting, once they figured out that they weren't paying anymore, and then they went on Patreon, and then they paid there, and then connected. We're working on all that stuff. If you have any issues with that stuff, just reach out to us. You can come at me, at Shane on Sifted. You can message us on Patreon. We're on it. So today we had a problem, and we started working on it right away. We'll get it fixed for you guys. We'll get it sorted or sifted right away. But for the most part, the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes has been very successful. Our Patreon is as the month turned over, was our highest Patreon total in well over a year. So I want to thank all you guys who are jumping on. We have momentum. It feels great to have momentum. Our Patreon is going up. Our views are going up. Our views for GameFace on YouTube are going up. So everything's pointed in the right direction. It seems like all the stuff that we're doing is kind of working.
Everything's coming up Millhouse.
Which is amazing. I've done so much stuff that hasn't worked. It's good to see stuff working.
It's important to have a running start before you hit the wall.
Yeah. And I just want to thank you, wherever you are listening to this, on whatever device you're listening on. Thank you for your support. Even if you're just on iTunes and you gave us a review or whatever and you subscribed, that matters. Everyone who's subscribing via Twitch Prime, I saw Sub Barracuda just subscribe for like the 10th month straight. Thank you. You guys are all awesome. All this stuff is adding up to help us sustain our business. So thank you guys so much for everything you've done. Let's keep going. A lot of people are like, how can I help? I love GameFace. We get a lot of comments on YouTube. They're like, this is the best gaming podcast on YouTube. Share the show. Tell other people that it's the best gaming podcast on YouTube. It's a huge help to us. If you can't afford to spend any money or whatever, or you don't have, Amazon Prime, just share the show. It makes a big, big difference. Just even if you only have 20 followers, it doesn't matter. One of those 20 people could find our stuff and like it and want to contribute to our Patreon. So thanks to everything everyone's doing, and thanks to anything you guys do in the future. It's all working. All right, let's get on with the show. We have two really big games, a third kind of big game to talk about today. Couple other fun topics to get to. I think it's going to be a great show, and we're going to kick things off with Ghost Recon Breakpoint. A closed beta happened this weekend, and as you guys probably remember, we gave away codes for that. Hopefully the people we gave codes to had fun.
And we're able to find the damn code to download the thing.
Yeah, the whole thing was really convoluted.
You put the code in on the website and it said, we'll send you an email when it's time to preload, and I never got the email, and I had to dig into my UB Club account or whatever they call it.
I would have never even known to do that. You texted me, and you're like,
I
figured it out. There's a little section on the website where you can go get your beta codes.
Yeah, but I never got the email.
I did.
So
I got it the next day at the end of the day, and I had emailed Ubisoft PR and said, hey, none of these codes are working. We can't get the email that lets us in. Never heard from them, but then the next day, I got an email. So I did get that with the code or whatever. But anyway, let's talk about what was actually on offer, and it was a lot. It was basically, they cut you off at a certain point, but you could kind of choose to do whatever you wanted.
Yeah, it's the first it's enough main story missions to get you kind of up and running with all your abilities and everything set to where you're okay, this is what the game's going to be.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And
then you can play side
missions, and then you can wander around the 4 provinces that are open and do whatever you want and find random stuff. I didn't do too much of that because the progress doesn't carry over, so why go nuts on that? But
I just wanted to get the lay of the land, basically.
Yeah. I played probably 8 hours of it.
Yeah, I was probably around there, maybe a little more than that. Because after I finished the campaign where it's okay, this is as far as you're going to go, I just started diving into all the other stuff. And I will say this about the game, it makes all those options very accessible.
Yeah.
But that was also, I think, the most surprising thing for me about the game is that it's like so many other games. Yeah. So when we first
it's Wildlands with Tim Cook as the bad guy, basically.
Yeah. So the way they marketed it was supposed to be the strategic, team-based, tactical shooter.
Which I never believed.
You're right. That's what I was getting at. Yeah. It's I thought that it would be that way. I'm a Ghost Recon fan.
So, but when we came back from E3, I didn't see the demo there, and you did, and you said as soon as you see the gameplay, you're going to believe that it's tactical. So what did they show you there?
Multiplayer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's what they were showing there. And you did have to play as a team and be very tactical with it. The actual game that you play, the campaign, is nothing like that.
Oh, it's run and gun Rambo style as much as Wildlands
I never even used all the stuff that they showed in the first trailer, the mud camo.
No, not at all.
You don't have to use any of that.
I did that once because I wanted to do it, but I never used it in an actual combat situation.
Yeah, I just tried it to see how it worked.
It's exactly the same as Wildlands. I go in, I try to kill guys quietly, I
doesn't work.
blow it, and then everyone in the world comes running at me, and I gun them all. With the first, early on with the starting assault rifle, I gunned down 25 guys and blew up a helicopter and stole and all of that. I got a suppressor.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
so it's the same, single player wise, except for the fact that you don't have companions, your 3 squad mates. It's the same game.
It really is. I'm disappointed by that, to be extremely disappointed, to be perfectly honest with you.
It's exactly what I thought it would be. I still enjoy it. The thing is, it's so huge. It's so
the world. I mean, you're seeing it right now.
That,
the map is just gigantic.
I look at it and I'm just like, do I want to play this fall? Not
Look
really.
at the lower third there.
Long Division. That is true. There's a lot of the Division in this game.
There's a lot of the Division in this,
and there's a lot of Assassin's Creed Odyssey in the way the missions play out. They use the same like kind of when you set Odyssey and Origins to like the kind of the vague quest marker where they just sort of tell you where it is and you have to find the specific location. Like
you can turn that on and off.
Well, same
I left it on.
Same with Assassin's Creed. I left it on, so I had to find the actual location.
Oh, I didn't. Like they tried to turn it off, and I'm like, no, leave it on.
And I kept it Assassin's Creed style,
okay.
Which I thought was pretty fun. It was a little annoying trying to figure out where they meant by this and what this was and which lake this was or whatever and where Precipice Falls was. But it kind of came together. Like at one point, I checked I found like an Intel thing, and it told me where the Precipice Falls
Intel's a big part
was.
Of this game.
And then I'm like, so that's where that is. So if I look, like kind of go out from around here, I'll find it. And then and then eventually I figured out if you press square on the map, it just pops up all the place names. And I'm like, oh, that would have been good to know earlier.
I mean, look, navigating the UI in this game is an arduous task, I think.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff in the menus.
And, like, it's weirdly sluggish. I mean, I will say that it's a beta.
Yeah.
There's a lot of glitches in this thing. The animation is garbage. A lot of I mean, not animation, like the actual animation of the characters, but, like, the characters are, like, there's, like, screen tearing on the characters' faces when they move. There's tons of typos in the subtitles.
Have you noticed too that the camera like rack focuses on the wrong thing?
Yes, there's a lot of blurry cutscenes.
Like you'll be talking to someone and they're blurry, but like the back of your character's head is like razor sharp
and forth. Yeah. And this, by the way, happens on both systems because I played it on PS4 and a friend of mine was playing on Xbox and he sent me pictures of the blurriness on the same cutscene, so that's universal.
Okay.
The other thing, like there's like weird typos where it's like. In one of the scenes, the leader of the homesteaders is saying like how he doesn't want you to bring in more troops or whatever. And he's like I don't need a bunch of grunts on my island. But the subtitle says I don't need a bunch of grounds on my island.
That.
And I'm like, dude, if you don't know the word grunt, you should not be subtitling the Tom Clancy game like that. Like what the hell? There's a bunch. It's like not typos, but it's like you didn't understand the word they said here. Did anyone give the subtitle people the script?
I know.
It's very weird.
We should probably share what the plot is because they weren't really that clear about it.
Such as it is. I mean,
you're a part of like, you're
the leader of this Ghost Recon squad. That basically there's an island. It sounds like it's about 2,000 kilometers east of New Zealand.
Yeah. They talk about Auckland a lot.
Yeah, called Aurea.
Yeah.
Aurora.
Yeah.
It's Aurora without the second R.
Yeah.
And it's like a tech paradise started by sort of like a Tim Cook, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos type to invent World 2.0.
Yeah.
Where they're going to like, reinvent
it's gonna be a
everything.
Utopia, yeah.
And at some point they lose contact with the island, and so the U.S. sends in this Ghost Recon team to figure out what's going on and reestablish contact. And the choppers that your squads are in get shot down, and you are the only
shot down though.
Well, they get droned down.
Yeah.
They
you don't know how it goes. Well, they do kind of show it, I guess.
They figure it out eventually. Like by the time this demo's over, you see. What happened?
Yeah.
And and you're the only survivor of your helicopter, and there's a few other survivors. But basically, you fight your way out of where you are, and you find your way to this like homesteader sort of resistance hideout where the other survivors of your Ghost squad have managed to end up.
The ones that are alive, anyway.
Yeah, and from there you're basically drafted into like reestablishing content because the ship you came from is off the coast. If you can find like a boat to get you out there, you can get help. But it turns out that there's a reason you can't do that. So you're stuck on this island, and you have to like basically take down this tech guy on your own. You don't really know why it's happening at this point. Like one of the big mission like intel missions is find the guy, find the founder guy, and figure out why this is happening. Like the conflict you have is with like basically like private military services that are here to like police the island, but like even the people who work for the company don't seem to like them very much. Like it seems
They're
like
called the Wolves.
Yeah, the wolf, and like the wolves are led by this like guy who looks a lot like he's the Punisher guy.
Yeah,
I
can
never
dude
remember his
from
name.
The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And, the guy who was on stage at E3.
Yeah, Punisher. I can never remember his name.
Yeah.
But he plays the guy who heads the wolves. And in a flashback, you find out that he was on your team at some point.
In the Middle East, he was in your
That
squad.
flashback, by the way, takes place in 2022.
I saw that.
So I guess it's another 10 years out.
Near future game.
Ubisoft loves in the near future stuff. They love the day after tomorrow.
So it allows them to have fun without having to be on the hook for anything.
Because this pretty much takes place the same time as Watch Dogs 3 would if they were in the same universe.
That's true. And we'll probably find out that they are.
You never know. I think the Tom Clancy
Ubisoft
stuff
does that.
I think the Tom Clancy stuff is separate.
Yeah.
In general, like but Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs are the same universe.
Yeah, they are.
But so that's sort of the basic premise is like tech gone wrong and
on a private island.
One of those cult of personality.
No escape.
I mean, it's funny to be talking about this.
It's like Far Cry.
Right when Apple TV Plus gets announced, it's a similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there's sort of a cult mentality to the.
It's a lot like Far Cry in all honesty. As far
it
as
is a little bit
setup.
like Far Cry. Yeah.
You're on this place that you can't get out of, and you're dealing with crazy people.
Pretty much.
That's the plot synopsis in 10 words.
A lot more drones in this one.
Yeah.
But like it's fine. It's a good premise. It's a good premise for like modern times because that's sort of where we are. It's also a good premise to avoid having to just like blow the shit out of another country full of brown people.
Yeah.
Which has been a continuing issue for the Tom Clancy game. So here's a good egalitarian enemy that you can feel good about. I guess, like, I don't know, like, you overhear, like, the conversations of the soldiers, and they're really just, like, kind of, like, soldiers of fortune American dudes who are like, yeah, I don't know, I can't wait to get home to my wife and kids, and it's like, but what about all the stuff we're doing? It's like, oh, it'll be fine. It's like, no, it won't. Headshot, okay. Oh, cool, I get your stuff. Ammo and $10. Great. I killed 2 men for ammo and $10.
Now, this game does have a lot of the Ubisoft open world game tropes.
Oh, for
it has like strongholds that you have to go and take over.
No towers, though.
Yeah, no towers.
So far.
We saw already that you're seeing in the B-roll, there are camps that you can set up, and from that camp, you can like
fast travel from.
You can fast travel from that point on. You can invite people to your game from that point.
You can craft stuff. You have a leisure activity you can partake in that gives you like a bonus for a period of time. Like you can eat and that makes you more resistant to damage. You can drink and that makes you harder. Your stamina doesn't run out as much. The one thing that really did surprise me about this game, I wasn't expecting it to be like a hardcore survival sim or any kind of like thing. Like I thought all that stuff was just marketing hype and trailer manipulation. But I am shocked at how irrelevant all that stuff is. Like they give you a canteen and explain to you how you need to drink out of the canteen to replenish fatigue. And I've spent like I'm not kidding, like 3 hours playing. And I'm like, when am I going to need to drink something?
It happened to me. And when it happens, you start running really funny. Like I don't.
Well, because what happens is near as I can tell is what happens is if you sprint or whatever and you let your stamina run out, it lowers the total stamina bar.
Yeah.
Slowly. And every time you do that, you lose a little more. And then once that gets down enough, you're fatigued. That never happened to me because I never let stamina run out when I sprint in games.
Yeah.
Unless I'm like under fire or something.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, that's it. That's all. And like, the wound thing is like you just hold L1 for a while.
It takes a long time.
It takes a while, but like
if you have,
I've done it in the middle of a firefight. Like no one comes at me. I mean,
there's kind of 2 different levels to the health system. It's like if you're gravely injured, then you have to use the bandages, and it takes a lot longer to heal yourself.
It's a little bit like Resistance. Like you have 4 life chunks.
Yep.
And once it goes below, and if you get injured, like one of the chunks goes away.
Yep.
And you get minor injuries or major injuries, and you will like limp or it impacts your gait.
My guy was running like he had a stick up his what.
Yeah. It impacts your for a while, but then they tend to get over it after a few seconds. But like. Yeah, I just run behind a thing and heal. I don't know, maybe I should be playing on hard or something. I will say this, like, Wildlands was very much the same in terms of sort of just like kind of walking through the main game. But then when they started putting up the special stuff in DLC, like the Predator thing and the Splinter Cell thing, that stuff was hard.
Yeah.
Like I had to get like teammates and real human beings and coordinate with them.
I mean, I honestly felt like even like the end parts of Wildlands, there you can see the run right there. That was it.
That's his mud run.
Yeah.
You were in mud.
I don't know. I'm disappointed that this game is so much like Ubisoft's other games, but my biggest complaint of all is that it just doesn't play well. So, like, the vehicle controls, like, they said that they focused on those. Like, here, right on cue, for example. Like, aiming your grenades. Like, there's no real arc that you can see. And, like, even if there is one, it doesn't, like, go through objects the way the grenade's actually going to travel. I felt like the aiming was really squirrely in this game. It took me a long time to where I could really line up my shots. I felt like the running and the traversal is all goofy and weird, and like takes forever to like turn around and run the other direction.
Yeah, that I did. I mean, I think the aiming and I actually think the driving's better than Wildlands.
It is better, but I still think it's terrible.
Not that means it's great, but like it's fine.
I don't think it is fine. I think it's bad. Like, I actually almost got car sick driving a buggy because the camera, it like jumps with every jolt of the car, and I started getting nauseous. And also, like, the camera will, if you turn your car, the camera will turn on its own around the car. It's like you have full control, except in certain instances, the game kind of takes over and will start adjusting the camera. Like, I thought the helicopters vastly improved.
Helicopter's way better. Game. Although the helicopter, so my issue with the camera in this game is that I play with inverted Y, as all men of taste and culture do. And inverting Y for the vehicles and on the helicopter also inverts Y for the camera. There's no separate thing for the camera and for the, like, they got so granular in how you could set the controls for this game that they forgot to make a separate camera thing. So, like, when you invert Y for the camera on the helicopter, you also invert Y on the pitch,
everything.
Which is completely unintuitive. So then you have to go into the control bindings and I undid it all and went in, and per type of vehicle you have to swap manually just let me flip the camera. Like, all I want to do is have inverted Y on the camera. Like, every other game Ubisoft has ever made is fine with that. I don't know, except Beyond Good and Evil, which can't do it without flipping X as well. But, like, I don't understand why all of a sudden that's a thing. Maybe that's just a beta error, but, like, that was annoying. Like, to make it play. But I want the camera, I want the look inverted. That's it. And like, it kept inverting the pitch controls, or it would only apply to certain vehicles. And every time I get in a new vehicle, the pitch, like I get on a boat and the pitch would not be inverted, and I have to go in and swap it specifically for the boat. Even though
now wait, does that carry across all boats?
Maybe. I only drove one boat. I only drove one kind of boat.
Oh man, so I have a feeling they'll fix that stuff.
I hope so.
I would hope so.
I mean, it should just be one thing. It should be a camera invert. Done.
That's it. Yeah, that's all it should be.
If I want to fine tune it beyond that, I can go into the individual. But if I set a universal setting, that setting should be universal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know what happened there.
I don't like the way this game controls, just in general. I just think it feels sluggish and weird.
I think it's fun. I mean, it feels like Wildlands to me, more or less. I do think there's a lot of weird physics wonkiness happening when you're climbing stuff, when you're trying to like mantle over things.
Yeah.
When you're like, anytime you hit any kind of grade, anytime you hit any kind of grade in the game, like the animation doesn't always seem to know what to do.
Well, it's like it's trying to.
I had my character trying to like climb up thin air a few times. Like, it just didn't.
That's actually kind of one of the things I liked, though. It's like if you're running really fast downhill, it's very realistic because human beings just can't really do that very well.
But going uphill is weird.
Yeah.
Like, really weird.
I feel like the movement controls in general are just off.
I think they're fine. I mean, I wouldn't like write home and say like, oh my god, this game controls so well, but it controls fine. Like, it didn't bother me. The camera stuff bothered me, and I mean,
guns feel okay.
I was tagging headshots left and right, no problem. Like, it was not an issue. So I don't know. Like, the movement thing was a problem, in part because it feels so much like Assassin's Creed. I always had the temptation to just jump off the nearest cliff when I wanted to go.
There's got to be a bale of hay down there somewhere.
You do have a parachute.
Yeah.
I mean, so you can kind of get away with that in places.
Jump.
But like, there were just a few times where I was like, oh wait, no, I can't do that in this game. And I didn't actually drive many places. I
just did it to try out the controls and see how alive the world was. Like, it's not that alive.
No.
I mean, in its current state, there aren't a lot of random enemies like out on the roads, and
No. And there's a lot of weird like. I mean, I saw a lot of random enemies and like driving around, but they weren't on like a patrol or anything. And like obviously you have the UAVs that go over, and like if if one of the Predator drone things spots you, get ready. Like it's like a 10-minute fight.
And you can stumble into areas of this game where you just get annihilated.
Yeah,
like I tried to go into one of the wolves camps. I killed like 3 or 4 of them, and I got shot once and died.
Yeah, the one time I died was because I stumbled across this thing that was guarded by one of the drone tanks, and the drone tank I was like, why is everything red? Boom. Gone.
Yeah.
But and there's no penalty. It doesn't seem like
no.
They don't even
kind of respawn.
They don't even respawn you like at your last bivouac. They respawn you like 10 feet away, and it's like, oh, but get out of here. Like, they basically respawn you like right outside the hostile zone of where you died. So it's like that's nice. Like that's good. No, there's not a lot of running to get back to where you were. You know, the gun upgrade stuff is weird and deep and crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like you can explode your gun and just basically build it from scratch.
You can change the color of everything you're wearing. You can also like customize how you want your whole outfit to look, so that whatever you equip doesn't change what your character looks like. That's nice.
Yep.
I mean, options. That's
what I was saying. The UI in this there's so much stuff.
Yeah, and it gets you there, but like it's not an elegant interface.
Yeah.
There are a couple times when I upgraded something without meaning to upgrade it because I didn't know what I was doing yet. But luckily, you know, the resources are pretty plentiful. But like, it's I mean, it's
so
really
much
is
like
more the same.
It is. Yeah, that's my biggest disappointment. I really thought that this was going to be something different.
I never understood why you thought that. It's Ghost Recon. It's not Ghost Recon because Ghost Recon isn't defined by that until Wildlands, as we talked about before.
It's beginning to become defined.
I mean, this is what Ghost Recon is from now on. I promise you. Until they make an installment that doesn't sell and they retire it for like 5 years until they figure out what to do next.
Yeah.
But this is Ghost Recon now. Basically,
that's sad.
Well, because Wildlands sold so well, like there's no way they were going to rock the boat on this. Like I said before, it's just they're going to make it again. And you know there is a way to play. I mean, I bet if you put this up to extreme difficulty, you have to play a lot smarter than I've been playing. But most people aren't going to do that. So I mean, I didn't. It's not like I didn't enjoy it. I played it for like all day on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It just I felt like I was going through the motions again. Like I felt like I had just fired up the Division 2 and was just playing that. And then there are differences. The biggest difference is kind of the focus on the missions. Like a lot of the missions are like intel gathering. In fact, there's a whole branch of missions that are just intel gathering. And that's kind of something that sets it apart a little bit, but it doesn't change the game that much.
There's a lot of they've taken a lot of stuff on board from the Division, and that's both good and bad in place. I do think the hub is stupid, like the fact that like you're running around the homestead like base, and everyone's talking about like not too many, you know, there's like 5 of us survived, and like there aren't enough of us to take on the security force. Meanwhile, like you can see all the other players, so, like there's hundreds of dudes in tack gear just running around. Everyone's like, yeah, I think we're really outnumbered. There's 4,000 people here. I don't know.
It's weird too how when you're in the hub, like everybody is gathered around that same area.
Yeah, they're all around the shop,
and they're visible.
They're all
Like, a lot of times when stuff like that, you don't see the actual players just standing around. And, like, you'll go to, like, the bar, and there's, like, 50 people standing around. Like, that's where, like, you get your missions or whatever. Like, it's a little interesting in that way. But overall, again, you're right. It's not a bad game. And if you're excited about this and you thought it was going to be like Wildlands, hey, you're going to have a ball with this. I really thought from the way they presented the game at first that it was going to be different, and it's really not. All the stuff that they presented in that original trailer, that original like little snippet of gameplay, like you don't really need to use any of that stuff.
No, it's there, but it's not.
It's not like this. Like you take each step and then you stop and look. No. It's like that's not what it is.
Well, if it was like that and the map was this big, you'd never finish it. Like it can't be that.
Well, right though. I didn't think the map was going to be that big. I thought it was going to be a tighter experience, more focused on.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
Yeah. But Ubisoft really is kind of just locked into this template for its games at this point.
I think this is even more of I mean, the first one sold like wildfire.
Yeah.
So, of course, they're not going to rock that boat. My character has the same scar.
But
this is the guy who had the biggest focus pull problems.
Yeah, like I think the B-roll cuts off before it gets really bad.
The later scenes with this guy are just like
you're looking at him and he's just completely blurred out.
Yeah, it's like somebody put a Vaseline filter on him for his close-up or something.
And I'm guessing they'll fix this stuff.
Yeah,
I hope.
I mean, this beta build is probably months old.
Yeah.
You know. Also, like when I talked to him, it was the right time of day that the shadows of the trees were right over him. And you could just see it doing that thing in open world games do
where the clock ticking.
Yeah, they just
it's like the second hand.
It was just I had to stop looking at it. I was like, oh god, it's too ugly. I can't do this.
Yeah, this game is. I mean, it's not ugly, but it has a lot of the typical late gen issues, LOD problems, pixelated
Yeah, it's got
shadows.
a lot of like. Well, the Xbox version has some pretty bad pop up.
Yeah, this PS4 Pro has it too.
Well,
yeah.
I played the PS4 version. I didn't see it didn't have pop up the way the Xbox did. What the PS4 seems to do is it blends in the ground clutter, and then anything that can be blown by the wind, and a lot of like grass and weeds and stuff get blown by anything that can be blown by the wind just like pops up. Like it's just like
like we want you to see this.
Yeah, it's like boing, it like pops up, and then the wind starts to affect it. So it's just like the ground is constantly like popping weeds out of itself or something. It's very weird.
Yeah, a lot of open world games have that lighting problem where literally the lighting is on like a second hand of a clock. Yeah. If you stare at the ground and you watch the shadows, they tick across the ground.
Yep.
And so when I notice games that don't do that, I'm always impressed. But this is another one that does do that.
Yeah, and this one does it like bad.
Yeah.
Like there's ways to blend that. Like Witcher 3 does it, but it does it in kind of a more of a smoother motion. But like this one, it's just like
you literally see the seconds ticking. Yeah. So and like a lot of games like this, when you get up close and personal, it gets messy. The melee options are not great. Yeah, but that's typical of these games.
There's like a lot of emphasis on CQC stuff, which I'm just like, why would you ever put points into that? Like you're never like if you do CQC in this game outside of like stealth kills, you screwed up.
You're dead. Well, you're gonna get shot because there's enough guys that they're just gonna target you, and you do die pretty easily in this. Each slug has some kind of an impact.
Sort of. I never came close to dying from gunfire.
I think it depends on how you play it, because I would just run around and jump out of the car and just run into, like, I could see the little blip on the side of the road showing that there's enemies there. I'd pull up and just get out and just run into battle.
And
if you do that, you get caught out in the open, you die.
Well, I always throw the drone up and spot everybody and then go in so I can see where people are coming. Because, like, basically I'm like, okay, I'm going to get 2, maybe 3 guys before somebody spots me, and then I'm just going to post up behind this cover and kill them all as they run in like idiots at me, which is exactly what they do. I'm sure that, you know, like Wildlands, they didn't do that. Like,
but you can watch it right here in this clip. They just come running.
They just stand
They're
there.
just lambs to the slaughter.
And this is like a story mission, so like I don't expect them to be like super sharp in the story. But this happens when I would go into like facilities that are like warning me that I'm not high enough level for it and stuff. Because the thing is, even though there's levels, even though there's like areas where like, oh, you should have level whatever gear for this, headshot kills someone in one.
I mean, this gun that I have right here, I shot some guy in the crotch and he died in one shot.
But this is not like Division. Like the levels don't determine like resilience. Like unless they're wearing a helmet, like if you shoot someone in the head, whether they're level 1 or level 50, they die.
And they should.
They should. Yeah,
I don't care what level you are. You get shot in the head with this huge
like
rifle round, you should die.
The level stuff really just tells you, like, gives you an idea of what kind of equipment they have.
Yeah,
which is important. I mean, because like you said,
it does matter.
A high level guy will kill you much faster because he has a better weapon.
Yep.
But like they're not going to stand up to your sniper rifle from like 1,000 yards any more than anybody else, unless they have a helmet on, which they have to shoot the helmet off and then shoot them in the head.
Yeah, and that's pretty satisfying.
Yeah.
And the cover system, I think, works good. Like, I don't have any issues with that. That seems to control great and have all the functionality that you'd need. But I think just in general, it just feels as way less inspired than I thought it was going to.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I would probably consider picking this up very strongly if it was like a Dead Spring or something release. Yeah. But the fact that it's this fall, like, it's a real wait and see for me to see what I'm playing at the time.
I also played the crap out of the Division 2. Like...
Well, I didn't play the Division 2 at all, so this is...
So you had a little hiatus.
This is less repetitive to me in that sense.
Yeah. So there you go. That's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Beta's over. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of weeks this is cracked open for everybody.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean...
It's October 4th?
Yeah. Ubisoft's pretty good about letting fans get their hands on stuff before it comes out, so I have a feeling probably not this weekend, but the next weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an open beta that probably has most of the same stuff that we played and maybe a couple extra things.
Chat's commenting on your choice of targets.
Choice of targets.
Shane shoots a lot of crotches in this
game. Oh, yeah. The problem with that particular scene was I had a scope on my rifle.
Yeah, the ACOG is a problem when you caught out.
Yeah, when you go to snap to target, like I was in cover, so it snapped right to the crotch.
Oh, were you using the snap to target thing?
No,
No. So that was a new option.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it said that like early on, like if you want to like use this thing like a Call of Duty style snap to target. I didn't use it.
I'm guessing I didn't either because I feel like the aiming's kind of squirrely.
Yeah, well, because it said, it seemed to imply that you had to turn it off, but it was off by default. So.
Well, yeah, I didn't turn it on.
There was a lot of weird things where it told me very specific things about like. This system works like this, and you do this to change this, and da-da-da-da. I'm like, how do I switch shoulders?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't tell me.
Like, give me the basics. I don't need it. I also felt like a lot of the hints and, quote, tips that they were giving you were trying to force you to play it the way they presented the game at first.
Yeah, there's definitely
some. They're like, hey, make sure you turn this on. Otherwise, this is going to play just like Wildlands. Mm-hmm. Like, that's kind of like the gist that I was getting from it. And it's like, the stuff that they're asking you to turn on, it's like, that doesn't make it more fun or enjoyable. And so I ended up playing it, so it was just like Wildlands. So I guess that's what I would close with, is if you're a big fan of Wildlands, you're going to love this game. If you're hoping for something a little different, I think you're probably going to be disappointed. Multiplayer in this is also bad, by the way. I played it in
Although my
Wildlands.
caveat to that would be, like, if you are expecting something different, I don't know what company you think you're following here.
Yeah.
It's Ubisoft.
Ubisoft has really kind of fallen into a pattern here.
Well, except for, like, I mean, Assassin's Creed they just reinvented, but now they're all like that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of what Ubisoft does. It leads with Creed, and then that stuff trickles down into all the other franchises.
I mean, I like the Assassin's Creed format.
Me too.
I mean, I don't mind this either. It's just I'm more interested in whacking people with a sword than I am shooting people with a gun.
Yep.
And the ancient settings are more interesting to me because they recreate this interesting thing.
There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
And like this is just like, well, it's another guy on a motorcycle
in some island
out with a fire
with a crazy dude trying to kill everybody.
Yeah, I mean, also as much as the kind of the Assassin's Creed style find where your mission is thing works. I think it works better in a scenario in Assassin's Creed where like I can kill 14,000 people with a sword between me and the target, whereas here it's like you might end up in a place where like, oh my god, I can't deal with this whole situation. It feels like this is a more dangerous world to be sort of meandering about, hoping you find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Also, I bet like a lot of people if you were to play co-op with this would not have the patience to play it like that.
No way. So. Where you're sinking your shots and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's just, I mean, that is kind of the problem when you put mechanics like that in a game is you're counting on a lot from the player. Mm-hmm. And you don't always have friends to play with who want to play by the rules. In fact, I very rarely ever do because I play at all weird times of the day and night. Like a lot of times I'm playing at like 1 p.m. Like all my friends are doing something at work or whatever. They're doing something else. And then I'll play late at night. Like, it's just the way my schedule works out. So I end up playing with a lot of randos online, unfortunately. And it doesn't make for the best experience for stuff like this, unfortunately. But it is what it is. So there you go. Ghost Recon Breakpoint, the closed beta. We'll definitely have a lot more on this game as its release date draws near. So in fact, probably in the next couple weeks here on GameFace, we'll get final review code and we'll give it a go. I'm hoping to see some tweaks in that final review code, but we'll see. Next up. $99.99.
Yep.
Now, 20 years ago. For those of you who don't know, $99.99 was the release date of the Sega Dreamcast, which just celebrated its 20th anniversary
in the United States.
In the United States. I don't know if there's been another thing that has made me feel older than the 20th anniversary of the Dreamcast.
Actually, something else happened that made me feel older yesterday, the same day, which is the 10th anniversary of Beatles Rock Band.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, that feels like it shouldn't be 10 years old.
Because that was kind of in the heart of the height of gaming websites and gaming TV shows. We were, like, in the thick of it when that came out.
Well, also, I mean, I still remember seeing Ringo and all those guys come out, and it's like, oh wow, the fucking Beatles.
I remember them coming and demoing the game at game trailers, and them leaving behind like one of the instruments. The instruments were so coveted because they were different, like just for the Beatles, and like it was huge.
Yeah,
but
and the Rock Band, the Rock Band stuff provided a lot of weird, like going to that one random concert they had at E3 the one year, and it was the Who.
Yeah,
and you're like, sure, I'll go to this thing.
The Who?
The Who are playing. The Who are playing at the place I came for free drinks. Okay,
they had a lot of money.
They did.
They were just giving them just gobs of money. I mean, look, you have to have deep pockets to even think about publishing a game like that with all those expensive peripherals
and licensing.
Yeah, but for me, the Dreamcast 20th anniversary hits home way harder because the Dreamcast is kind of what convinced me to launch my first ever gaming website, Street Level Gaming. So I had been a hardcore gamer my whole life, and I had been playing a lot of N64 and PlayStation stuff, but when I first saw the Dreamcast, that was when I realized, oh my gosh, games are going to go nuclear. So I would argue the Dreamcast was the turning point of mainstreaming games to a bigger audience than the audience that they had been catering to all along. To me, it was the first time that random people would walk by watching a video game and go, holy crap.
They wouldn't buy it, but they would say, holy crap.
But like I've told the story before about my wife. Like we're playing NFL 2K in my apartment. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife, walks in. She comes home from work, and she's like, I didn't think there was a game on tonight. And I'm like, there isn't a game on. This is a video game. And like I'll never forget her face when she realized it was a video game. And a lot of people who I showed my Dreamcast to were like, oh my gosh, I never dreamed games could look that good. Now, I just had a friend when I was on the East Coast tell me that he had just bought a PS4 and his mind was blown by the PS4. He's like, I cannot believe games look this good. I haven't really paid attention to it for a long time.
I mean, I have paid attention, and sometimes when I play like Spider-Man and stuff,
it still blows
that's
me
ridiculous.
Away. It still blows
me away. Or Gears 5.
Yeah. But to me, Dreamcast was the first HD console. It to me was like the turning point. Where
it was the first progressive scaling console. If you got the VGA box, I mean, the move to 3D was really the thing that was going to push things into the mainstream one way or the other, and I knew that because my epiphany on that was twofold. It was the bringing the N64 to a New Year's party. Yeah. Because I got the N64 like the Christmas that came out, and my friends were like, bring the system. We want to play Shadows of the Empire and Mario, and so I brought it in, and they weren't gamers. Like this was like the cool crowd from when I was in high school. They were all home for Christmas. Yeah. And we brought it over, and everybody wanted to play. Like everybody tried Mario, everybody tried the Hoth level on Shadows of the Empire. I'm like, these are people that had never picked up a game in the years I'd known them. And then the second one was the following year. I brought the PlayStation 1 back from college with Parappa, and the party stopped. Like everybody was in. Like we were in a friend's one of our friends was house sitting for one of our old teachers, and we set the system up in like kind of the rumpus room place. And by like 9 p.m., everyone was just drinking in that room playing Parappa. And I'm like, I think this might catch on finally. Yeah. And then, Dreamcast was the first time where like you had the 3D graphics where you're like, oh, that looks like what they say it is.
Yeah.
Kind of,
Yeah. You didn't have to use your imagination.
I remember because I got the Dreamcast a year earlier. I got the Japanese one for Christmas, which I think cost my mom an absurd amount of money. Yep. And of course, what did I get with it? Godzilla, because nothing else was out. Sonic here came out 2 days later. Yeah. And I got that. I remember taking it home. And I played this level because the first level I'd already been kind of like shown pretty extensively in the magazines and stuff. And then the second level, you get to the part where the tornado happens, and when the tornado happened, I just started laughing because like it was just like it was ridiculous. Like,
it was absurd.
It was
it
ridiculous
could happen
to
in
see
real time.
That. And then probably the next time I felt like that was when I saw an NFL 2K for the first time a year later. Yep. This was also my favorite system acquisition because the American release because this was a period of time I don't remember exactly why, but like we were all very anti-pre-order. Like we were always very irritated that like the GameStop and
would take your money and then use it to invest.
There's that, but also they wouldn't get more product than was pre-ordered. So you could never just walk in and buy the product.
Yeah.
And that was before like places like Walmart and Best Buy and like mainstream stores carried games in any real amounts, or especially getting them in a timely manner. Like back in the day, like maybe Toys R Us got it on the day of release, but like the big box stores were like, sometime this week. We don't care.
Like, but it comes out Tuesday.
Like, whatever.
Maybe
kid.
in your world it does.
Yeah. And so we were very anti-pre-ordering, and we went to Valco, which was a mall in down near San Jose, and there were 3 game stores there. There was an EB, there was a Software Etc., and there was a Digital Stuff, which was a locally owned chain.
I've never heard of that one.
Digital Stuff. There was only 2 stores. There was that mall and a mall further, like up near San Mateo. And we went in, and there was a huge line waiting for the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast weren't even there yet. They were waiting for the shipment to arrive at like 2 p.m. And they're all in line, and they're like, pre-orders only, pre-orders only. I'm like, okay. So we walked down to Digital Stuff. We're like, you got any Dreamcasts? Like, we got 2 left. We're like, we'll take them. And so we got them, and we walked back out. That part where the line was, not remotely close to where our car was, but that is where we walked out, carrying our Dreamcast.
Just to rub it in.
I'm like, They're like, where did you get them? Oh, they're out. Sorry.
For me, the Dreamcast was...
And then I went home and like didn't play it.
Yeah.
Because I'd owned it for a year.
Yeah, you'd already played a lot of the launch games. But for me, the Dreamcast was the signifier to me that gaming was going to become something bigger than anyone could fathom. So in college, I was in the sports writing track. I was a journalism major, but everything I had taken a bunch of sports writing courses. I wanted to be a sports writer. And I started to realize, oh my gosh, like I'm here at Temple in the journalism department. There are going to be 50 people who graduate with a journalism degree the same semester I do who want to be sports writers. And there are 3 papers in the city. And I was like, I'm good, but it's going to take a lot of luck. No matter how good you are, it's going to take some luck to make it happen.
Metropolis Street Racer?
Yeah.
I remember when this game looked really good.
Oh, yeah. It was mind-blowing when it came. It still doesn't look bad.
It doesn't look bad, but it's just...
Yeah. It was literally mind-blowing when it came out.
The image in my head is not this.
Yeah. And so I was like, you know what? Like, I think gaming is going to become gigantic, and I'm going to take the path less traveled, and I'm going to go for gaming. And my professors thought I was insane. They're like, what are you doing? You've been in the sports writing track here your whole time. And I'm like, bro, like, where am I going to get a job? They're like, well, I can hook you up with internships at these papers. I'm like, there's already 18 people at the Philadelphia Inquirer from Temple. And you have, in the city, you have Penn, you have Drexel, you have Villanova. There's like 7, St. Joe's. There's so many. I'm like, if there's this many people coming from Temple, how many people are coming from the other schools for these 4 jobs? So I just told him, I'm like, look, I'm being realistic. And so I launched my own website, and it was an N64 and Dreamcast website. Probably the only one that ever existed. Think about it. How many websites were just N64 and Dreamcast? Like none.
No, man. I mean, you usually had to pick a side.
Yeah, but of the 3 consoles, I felt like
I still miss Dave's Sega Saturn page.
Yeah. I felt like those were the 2 platforms that were really pushing things forward. Like I thought the PlayStation was like a half step and was kind of cheating to get the 3D. And so I focused on N64 and Dreamcast, and then did that for a couple years, graduated, got my job at GameSpot right out of college, and the rest is kind of history. But I absolutely credit the Dreamcast with being the console that sparked in my mind, this is going to become huge. Like it's getting bigger now slowly, but there's going to be an explosion. And then the very next, the PlayStation 2. Boom.
Yeah, see, so like I didn't see it like that. I already kind of knew that was coming because of my experience with the N64 and the PlayStation. And I always thought the PlayStation 2 was going to be the explosion.
Yeah, it was.
To me, the Dreamcast was the last, and I, from the beginning, but even when they were trying to be optimistic, I was like, the Dreamcast is the last Sega console. This is my last console from my favorite game maker, and I'm just gonna like go like full bore. Like,
Yeah.
I'm go whole hog. I got the Japanese one, American one. I modded the American one. I imported. I mean, I have over 100 Dreamcast games to this day, and half of them are Japanese.
Yeah.
It was my fighting game console. It still is my fighting game console, really, because it still has some almost until recently unsurpassed versions of some of those Capcom and SNK games.
Power Stone.
Power Stone.
There's no other option for Power Stone.
Unless you want to play it. I think there was a PSP version or a Vita version.
Is there?
Yeah, there was a collection on that. But who wants to play with? I mean, come on. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
It has the best Soul Calibur.
Yeah.
it was a great system. It was a lot of fun. It was
Think about the online stuff. So I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, the online. I mean, I played 400 or 500 hours of Phantasy Star Online back in the day.
Did you see the Peter Moore video that was published yesterday?
I didn't watch it, but I saw it went up.
Yeah, it's on the site, and it's awesome. They went to Peter Moore, who is now like the president of Liverpool Football Club, who, by the way, like won like the Premier League or whatever. Like as soon as he got there,
he's doing all right.
He's doing amazing. But anyway, he recorded a whole thing about the Dreamcast for Sega. Like they went to him in his office at Liverpool, and he recorded this awesome thing. And he really brought up a good point. Like all the stuff that we're seeing now that gaming was started by the Dreamcast. Having that Ethernet port, that portal to the internet built into your console, it changed everything.
Yeah, I mean,
everything. I mean, you could say it probably would have happened no matter what, but somebody has to do it
sort
first.
of. I mean, I think it would have happened with Xbox one way or the other.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft is going to drag the console business into the online space, kicking and screaming whether it mattered or not.
Yep.
But the thing is, like, I mean, he's not wrong. At the same time,
Champions League. I was corrected by Dan Boy. Sorry. Manchester City won the Premier League.
At the same time, Peter Moore's right, but at the same time, like, Sega has always been ahead of the game. Sega has always done stuff way earlier than everyone else, and it's always backfired on them.
Yeah.
The Sega CD was great. The Sega CD was the future of games. It was too early.
Yeah.
Like it was. They always did that. All the AM2 stuff. All that stuff was amazing. All that stuff was the best arcade stuff at the time. But you couldn't port it properly to to home consoles at the time because it was too advanced. You were always making compromises, and it hurt them at the home market, and that's one reason they couldn't keep competing. They stayed in the arcade market to this day, but like. That was always Sega's problem. Was like they were trying to push the envelope and they were always pushing it too soon.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't always pay off to be the first Penguin.
I don't think it hardly ever pays off to be the first Penguin.
Pretty rarely.
I mean, I'm trying to keep that from happening with SIFTD. It's like it's like in the back of my mind, I know that someone could come along with a ton of money and do what I've wanted to do with SIFTD all along and just leave us in the dust. But
I do appreciate people say, oh my God, Peter Moore did that, and I'm like, of course he did that. Peter Moore was always a true believer in pretty much everything he ever promoted.
Yep.
But you could tell even from the beginning when you talked to him back in the day, he loved that Sega. He loved Sega stuff. He thought the Dreamcast was a quality product. He believed it should be successful, and it should have been. But that was the days when EA. I mean, that's why I never thought Dreamcast had a future, was because EA wasn't supporting it at the time. It's crazy to think about now. But at the time, if EA wasn't on your system, you weren't a system. Basically.
Although I would argue that if like a system doesn't have Madden or FIFA today, its chances with the hardcore don't change that much. But I think its chances of becoming like a mainstream console are hurt.
I don't know. Nintendo's doing all right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they got kind of half-ass versions of FIFA.
They have NBA 2K.
But it's not. I mean, I don't think anyone's buying the system for that stuff. Certainly,
I think a lot of people do. Like Pachter brings up a good point. I
like to see sales on those.
He says 30 to 40% of console owners buy a console for one game, and they just play that one game. And it's like again, GTA or a sports game.
I don't know if that tracks with Switch because Switch's attach rate for software is different than normal. I mean, Switch is the exception all the time. Switch is the Mongol horde of game consoles. Every rule in history does not apply to the Mongols.
Yeah.
They're always the exception, as John Green says in the Crash Course videos. And the Switch is basically that for game. It's like, well, no, if you do this, like that's never going to work unless you're the Switch. You know, like that's so. And good for Nintendo in that regard. But like, if like PlayStation 5 didn't have Madden and FIFA, that's a problem. I would say that's still. I don't think it's like a fatal flaw like it was for the Dreamcast. I mean, the Dreamcast also had other problems, but like the real problem was you didn't have EA stuff. No one, and NFL 2K was great, but it's hard to pull people away from that Madden brand. And then you had the PlayStation 2 show up, and you had the Madden stuff, but you also had a DVD player, which was like the thing everybody was thinking about at the time, so they could watch The Matrix.
Yeah.
And it was again a little early.
Yep, a little too early. So here we are 20 years later, Matt. What is the best Dreamcast game ever?
Ooh. I mean, if you're really talking like my favorite game on the system of all time that's not necessarily limited to the system, it's probably Virtua Fighter 3. That's a tough. I feel like a lot of the best Dreamcast games have moved on to other systems, but I think if you're gonna pin me down to one that isn't Virtua Fighter, which I liked in the arcade before I came to the system, I think I would say Jet Set Radio.
Really?
I love Jet Set Radio.
Do you think it's the best game or just the one that you like?
It's my favorite.
Your favorite.
I mean, best game, I don't know. That would be a technical choice that I don't know.
I think it's Soul Calibur.
I'm not a huge Soul Calibur fan. I think it's the best Soul Calibur game, at least certainly until the new one. I don't think they've matched this Soul Calibur until last year.
Yeah.
And I still don't think it's as good just because there's nostalgia in play.
Sure.
But, like, I think they've struggled to make another Soul Calibur as good as this one.
I think Soul Calibur was its killer app. I think it's what got most people to buy
definitely
it.
was early on, yeah. I mean, that was the game we'd have when I was running a game store up in the peninsula at the time. And that was the game we would put on the Dreamcast demo unit to just like draw people in. We'd do tournaments and stuff. Yeah. And like that game sold more systems at our store than any other game.
Even remember back to when we worked at G4 and we had that little...
That's a crazy notion that the idea of like a fighting game selling the system.
That would never happen,
that wouldn't happen
anymore.
Today. No.
But I even remember back to our time at G4, we had that little mini arcade and the most popular game was Soul Calibur. Mm-hmm. So... I feel like that's the game that sold the most Dreamcast because there was really nothing that could touch it. I mean, it was arcade perfect.
I think it depended. It was kind of I think it might have been closer than you think between Soul Calibur and Sonic Adventure.
That's probably true.
I didn't particularly like Sonic Adventure 1. Yeah. I like Sonic Adventure 2 a lot more, but like I think the Sonics helped also because they skipped a generation with Sonic.
Yeah.
So like Sonic being back was a thing. I think a lot of fighting game players owned a Dreamcast by default just because it was the best fighting game system of the time. Beyond that, like every time I go beyond that, I mean the Sega exclusives are great. I mean the Jet Set Radio is great. Phantasy Star Online was great. I never want to look at it again, but like I mean, I ate too much chocolate on that one. I never need to see that game again. Space Channel 5 is great. Sega Gaga is bonkers, and I wish someone would localize that game and so everybody could play it because that game is ridiculous. It's like a corporate strategy game where you run like a fake version of Sega in a world where like Sega characters attack Tokyo, and it's like there's and like you're
there are a lot of weird
and you're
games
literally
that never came to the
you're
US.
Literally fighting Sony, like a very thinly disguised version of Sony, and like they are brutal. Seaman, like what the hell? Like what the hell was that? I mean, Sega, for all its weird foibles and failures, was absolutely fearless.
It was, yeah.
I always admired them for that, even though it didn't always work out tremendously well for them.
Yeah, it pretty much never did.
No.
Other than the Genesis generation.
I love Techromancer.
Yeah.
That giant robot fighting game from Capcom, which never showed up anywhere else ever again.
Here's another game worth mentioning is the first UFC game for Dreamcast.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
that game was sick, man. Like it was unlike anything ever made before. That to me was one of the seminal games for Dreamcast. It established how like mixed martial arts games are going to be played and made for the rest of time.
Yeah, I bought that, but I didn't like it very much. But it was sort of one of those things where it was just like you could tell that it was like important that was happening.
Yeah,
that like. You know, it was.
They figured out a way to do ground and pound in a video game. That was no easy task. And there's all kinds of little gems like that on the Dreamcast that I'll always remember and have
or like
soft spot in my heart for.
Le Mans 24 Hours.
Yeah.
It was a great game by Melbourne House down in Australia.
Yeah.
One of the most talented developers of that era. Like those guys.
Their games always looked better.
They looked great. They ran great. Those guys worked magic on a daily basis.
Most overrated game? Code Veronica?
Yeah, I mean, I like Code Veronica the best of any Resident Evil when it came out, and then when it came out on the 360, I tried to play it, and I got like 10 minutes in, I'm like, no.
Yeah,
and the thing was, so I have a bunch of friends who are diehard like horror.
That might have been the other system.
Diehard horror fans. They're diehard like Resident Evil fans. They play the old games. They would scoff at me because I would say, like, no, the tech has progressed to the point that I don't want to play this anymore. They're like, nah, you're just a graphics whore. And they tried to play this, same thing, and they're like, no, can't do it. This is great. Skies of Arcadia is great. I wish they would bring this back.
That series needs to come back.
I'd love to see this game in modern graphics.
Yeah.
Or just remaster the GameCube version, which was an improvement.
Totally fine. I mean, this is a great RPG that most people have not played.
Yeah. Same with the first game I ever reviewed for money was for professionally at all was Grandia 2 on the Dreamcast.
Another good one.
No pressure on that. Here's a 100-hour game to do and that was back when I thought that you were required to finish the game to review them. And I still do that, but like...
Oh, I always do.
But like, it wasn't until a few months in, they're like, no, you can't pay someone $150 to like play a 100-hour game. I'm like, but how do you know? They're like, dude. I'm like, I thought I'd uncovered like a scandal, and there's like, no, it's just how it works, dude.
So you really liked Jet Set Radio?
I
To
love
me,
Jet Set Radio.
It was probably the most disappointing, other than Sonic Adventure, it was probably the most disappointing Dreamcast game.
I love
Because this was
this
all
game.
about me. This was my culture. Skating, graffiti, great music. Like, this was me. This has me all over it. And then I played it, and I was like, this was made for people not like me.
That covers me.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, I understood why they did it. It's like, yeah.
I mean, if you're expecting Tony Hawk, it was not going to be that. It was not that. Like the skating was a lot more simple than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
But the style and the verve and the
Again,
characters and everything, the music,
bravery
is great.
to make this game.
Yeah.
A graffiti inline skating game. Like, only Sega.
In an alternate universe.
Yeah.
Of like, it's bizarre.
It really
is.
is.
I mean, Sega just there's no fear. The only thing I think I would
even like Space Channel 5, even though they ripped off like Lady Kier and everying, like, what? Like,
and a game and Apollo Smile.
Yeah.
There's a name I've not heard in a long time. Also, like, you play Space Channel 5 Part 2 today, you'll find yourself having to explain to the younger people why Michael Jackson is in it.
Yeah.
Awkward.
Yeah.
There's so much good stuff on there, and even the crappy stuff had like kind of a charm to it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, Space Channel 5 was kind of crappy.
I mean, it's just like a rhythm game, and certainly mildly on par with the story-driven rhythm games of the time. It was no Bimani game, it was no DDR, but like, which was big at the time. But I like it. Morgan still loves Ulala. I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's Lady Kier from D-Light. I mean, they totally ripped her off. And she took him to court, and she lost. Whoops. That was like a kind of a landmark case, though, as far as like someone stealing your likeness without using your name. Like, is that okay? And like the courts were like, yeah, that's okay. Not that I have to worry about that, but she did. But that was blatantly her from her dewdrops in the garden.
I don't know. I think every default protagonist steals your likeness to some degree.
Oh, yeah. Because I am like generic dude. You're absolutely right.
Like a white dude with short hair.
Yeah, that's me. I don't have any problems creating my character in video games generally.
No, representation, not an issue for
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, there it is. The Dreamcast 20th anniversary. May she rest in peace. Yeah. I still feel
mine still works.
And mine does too. It works great. I have no problem. All the peripherals work for it.
If you get like a modern like VGA hookup for that thing, it still looks good.
It looks good.
It's really good.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And like, I've told this story again before, but like when I worked at GameSpot, Sega worked on the floor above us, and when the Dreamcast died, they called us and said, come buy stuff.
Yep.
And I just went and just bought like, I mean, they were selling games for $5, controllers for $8.
Oh, they were less when they took
VMUs for like $1.
They sold me a Dreamcast for $2.
Yeah, I ended up getting like
in fact, I think the systems cost less than the games at that fire sale because they just wanted the space back.
Yep, and like I'll never forget that going up there. It was one of the saddest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I felt bad. I was like, I don't want to buy this for $5. Like, this is wrong. Like, I'll never forget it.
Oh, Crazy Taxi! How do we forget Crazy Taxi?
Yeah, how do we forget that? But I'll never forget going up there and seeing like all the Sega PR people standing there by the tables with all the stuff on it, the looks on their faces, because
they knew it was over.
Back then, like, people cared. Like, they weren't just like, oh, I'm working at Sega now, but I'm hoping to parlay this into a job at Nintendo or Sony. No, the people who ran PR at Sega loved frickin' Sega. And they would call me and argue with me over our reviews and be like, no, like, this is this because of this. Like, it's not like that anymore. Every job now is just a ladder rung to get up to some other job.
And also because the people that were there at the time were people who'd been there a long time. They'd been there in the lean years, 16-bit era, and they'd seen the same thing we did, that like, oh, like, this is about to blow up. Like, games are finally going to hit mainstream. And that day was when they knew that they weren't going to be part of that.
Yeah.
And that's a horrible outcome.
But what prompted the story is that a few months ago, I started pulling out a lot of that brand new stuff that's still in boxes that I bought that day at Sega, and it all still works. Like the VMUs, I pulled the little plastic tab out of the battery, I plugged it in, and it freaking works. Yep. Everything still works.
All my VMUs still work. Yep. All my saves are intact.
All my controllers
not true of my PlayStation 1 memory cards, I'll tell you that much.
I mean, I went through like 3 PlayStation 1s. Like, the last one I bought, like, I think I still have to sit it on the side to make it work. So, it sucks. Life isn't always fair. But at least
certainly not if you're Sega.
Nope. But at least Sega lives on, and we still get to play its software.
I mean,
it could have gone away, you know.
I mean, Shenmue, great.
Yeah.
Great. I mean, well, for the time.
I mean,
I
if you
still
think
love
about
Shenmue 2.
how many games were actually released for the Dreamcast in the U.S. and how many of them are worth remembering at least, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Also, like, it's nice that, like, when you really look at it, almost everything worthwhile on the Dreamcast has moved forward to future systems. Like, nothing was really lost to time.
I mean, we're still waiting for a new Power Stone.
Yeah, Power Stone seemed to. I mean, that's Capcom though. Like
Yeah.
Sega managed to salvage most of their stuff and bring it forward.
Yeah.
If only on the GameCube. But
Yep.
at least like the GameCube is a more functional system to be able to find and mess with now.
Yeah.
It's part of a collector movement, so like those games will be preserved. So. Like, I don't feel like the Dreamcast is... I mean, the Dreamcast was a loss in the sense that, like, we lost Sega as a console manufacturer, but then we kind of gained Xbox, which is sort of has a similar look to it, has similar
Aesthetic.
verve.
Yeah.
Also mildly fearless, sometimes in the wrong direction.
Yeah, but...
and now we're doing this whole thing where they're like, yeah, we're just going to give you stuff. Like, I mean, we're going to get to Gears later, but it's like, I didn't pay for Gears.
Yeah.
I have Game Pass subscription, and I just installed the Ultimate Edition 5 days early and started playing. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
And like maybe
really
that'll blow
is.
up in their face the way Sega's old innovations used to, but we'll see. Like
We will
I mean, a lot of stuff like that always makes me think of Sega,
Yep.
where people are doing something crazy, and you're like, this is like something Sega would do.
always-
Stadia is a little bit like that too. I'm like, that's ridiculous. But like when you think about it, you know, they had the Sega channel and the X-Band back on the Genesis, and that was you basically rented games and played them through that. I mean,
Well, they had like that system too in Japan for the SNES.
yes,
Was it called like the Rand Network? No, that was
it's like
for the
Saddle
DD.
of You or something like that.
Yeah, and you could go into like a Lawson's convenience store and buy games. Like I think they even did that through like the N64 era a little bit, but
Yeah, I think the 64 DD was supposed to kind of like capitalize on that idea more, but
and
it's never
really happened. I mean, it was released in Japan.
It was,
but it was a shell of what it was supposed
no, we
to be.
can't all be Doshin the Giant.
Nope.
Why do I remember that?
Because it was the only DD game
I
really worth
guess.
remembering, other than like
There was a Zelda,
Ocarina of Time
with
Gaiden, they were calling it.
Yeah, but now we have that on the
Yep,
GameCube.
it's out there. So anyway, I always like to see people who are brave and bold be rewarded. Unfortunately, the Dreamcast was a case of that not happening.
No.
And honestly, I hate to say it, usually it doesn't happen. The people who step out first usually do not end up making the money off of the idea.
It was not healthy to be first off the boat on Omaha Beach,
Nope.
despite how heroic it was.
So that's a good analogy. So there you go.
And Sega was always first off the damn boat.
Yep, it was. So there you go, the Sega Dreamcast 20th anniversary.
Saying, EA, cover me. And EA
Yeah,
like, no.
we're not going to do that. I will always have a soft spot in my heart for the Dreamcast because again, it's why I'm here right now. Without the Dreamcast, I don't think coming at that exact time in my college career where I had to figure out where I wanted to go. I was going into like my junior year, and I'm like, I need to figure this out now. And the Dreamcast prompted me to do this, and hopefully, ultimately, it was the right decision. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what could have happened? I could have become a crazy sports writer that's on ESPN. I don't know. There's just no way to know. But
I gotta,
I'm very happy with the way it ended up.
I got to give him credit for making such a good system that I eventually even got over how stupid that name is.
Yep. It's just like Wii. It just be
Yeah.
something you say. You just get over it.
Yeah,
over
it just
time.
you say it so much it doesn't mean anything anymore. But
Yep.
early on, I'm a Dreamcast.
I always liked the name.
What?
You got to realize I was in like the rave scene back then as a DJ, and like it had. I mean, that's kind of what they were going for. Like even their ads and everything, it was all about kind of like, I don't know. It was in my wheelhouse.
The ads were
Dreamcast.
very good. Like the It's Thinking stuff was
Yeah.
a really good campaign. It just didn't work.
Yeah, it just didn't, unfortunately. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about GreedFall, an action RPG from the developer Spiders, who developed the game The Technomancer, which I played far too long and finished. It ended up being like a 60 or 70 hour game.
And Mars Warlogs, which was
Yep, that was kind of the
Technomancer was the sequel to that.
Yep, it was a sequel to that. They're working on another game right now as well, I believe.
Yeah.
That's coming out like I think early next year.
Yeah, they got 2 teams now. So
Yep.
they're doing well.
They're hanging in there. Spiders has not been known. To me, when I think about Spiders, I think about promise.
Mm-hmm.
Every game of theirs I play, I feel like it's right on the cusp of being something special, but there's always this little thing that holds it back. This is its latest game. It comes out today, or it's out now. It just came out today. It is an action RPG, like pretty much all of Spiders games, but it takes place in an alternate 17th century Matt, you've spent some time with this game. How's it lining up for you?
Well, I think like earlier we'd said that like Spiders was kind of positioned to maybe potentially fill the niche that BioWare has left vacant.
Yeah.
In terms of sort of
That's fair.
the character-driven action RPG world. And I think you can definitely see that in this game. The one thing I would caution is that this game feels like a BioWare game that was made between Dragon Age 1 and Mass Effect 1.
That's not that encouraging.
It's it's still rough.
This is 2019.
Yeah, but good games are good games.
Yeah.
It's still rough, and remember, like, I mean, it's not like BioWare games were technical tour de forces of their era either, really.
True.
I mean, Mass Effect 1 was great, but like that combat sucks. And you just get past it because you're there for the characters and the story and the world. And when it comes to the world and the characters, this one pretty much nails it. Like, the world is definitely the most ambitious thing they've done so far. The research.
How do they explain these odd creatures in the 1800s?
Well, it's not our world. It's not.
Okay.
It's not the 17th century.
Oh.
It's. I mean, it is based on that era. But
So
it's
very
not,
loosely
It's
based.
not Earth.
Okay.
It's not.
Oh,
it's
gotcha.
a fantasy world. There's magic and sorcerers and monsters, and you're not going to North America. You're going to some island they've discovered across the ocean that's like, full of these native characters and stuff. It is about kind of the colonial imperialist era, without question. But it's not set in the real world at all. It does still deal with a lot of the same questions. Like, you've got a lot of people that are like, it's all about alliances and conflict between like sides and groups and factions. You have a relationship rating with like, I think like 7 or 8 different factions in the game. And it is, the way things are unfolding in this world. Like, you are I think a prince or princess, depending on which sex you pick.
Yeah.
And you're royalty of some kind. Like, your uncle is the king, I think. And you and your cousin, who's the prince, you're being sent to this new world to basically your cousin's going to be the new governor, and you're going to be like some kind of like legatus, I think they called it. They said basically you're going to be helping him.
Okay.
So the first like 3 or 4 hours are actually in the old world, in the city you're leaving from, called Serene, and the city in the new world you're going to is called New Serene, because they're very creative people.
That's kind of how it works.
So it's kind of it's that first world area thing where you get to know your character. You meet the basic new characters. You'll see here like that's the character you play, the younger guy here, and you'll see that he has like kind of a mark on the side of his face. That is a plague that's killing everybody. Like, it starts as like a black mark on you and like grows to take over your whole body and everything. So part of the plot seems to be like figuring out what that is and how to fight it. Like, if you walk around the city, like, tons of people are just covered in this thing. Like, it's very Black Death-ish. And there's a bunch of side quests to do. You got to talk to a bunch of people and find some people that got drunk the night before. Like, your cousin is gone and like no one knows where he is because he got super drunk and he disappeared. And because it's the kind of time where like you can, if you get too drunk and mouth off to the wrong person, you're gonna end up tied up in a warehouse somewhere.
Or you could die.
You die, definitely. But like, so there's a bunch of side quests to get you up to kind of level 5-ish before you leave, and then you leave and you go and
to the new world.
The new world, and it's gigantic. I mean, the city you start in is not small. Like, there's a lot of stuff to do and see, and there's tons of loot to pick up and tons of things to learn how to do and people to talk to and little side quests to do. But then you get to this place, and it's just this huge city, and you get the wilderness is just open, like you can see it, and it's very well crafted. Like, the cities make sense. The cities look detailed and lived in. The wilderness like has like a lot, there's tons of like resources to gather because there's various skills to like brew potions and make explosives and craft various things. Like, there's a lot of crafting in the game. Depending on which skill sets you have, you can see that's your one of 3 skill charts. You have skills for like combat. Their attributes are basically abilities that like enhance your combat stuff and other things, and then talents are more like there's charisma and vigor, and those can
RPG tropes.
RPG stuff that gets you you can get into tighter, different spaces with certain ones, and you can have better conversation options with others, like standard kind of lock picking, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's all kind of the baseline. But there is definitely like a colonialist, like kind of imperialist situation happening, because if you choose that as kind of the inspiration for your setting, you sort of inherit that as a thing. And so there are native people on this island, and there's various factions. So like there's a church faction whose name I can't remember. It's like Telelestrer or something like that. They are basically there's an inquisition, and they are basically they're burning people at the stake. They're prosecuting and chasing down heretics. One of the side quests early on is like this pair of heretics that they're trying to find and arrest and basically kill. And then you find out that basically the reason that's happening is because they wrote a paper that disagreed with the standard interpretation of scripture. So now they have to die. So you have the option to let them go or help them find asylum, or arrest them and leave them to die. And depending on which one you do, you get different rewards, and you get different reputation boosts for different factions. And then there's a company called the Bridge Alliance, I think it's called. And that's basically like the British East India Company. Like it's a colonial-ish trading like sort of thing. And they hate the Inquisition, so like the different factions all have different opinions of each other. So the trick is, so far, and I've seen some people complain online that like the game doesn't really take a position on the imperialism thing, that you're just sort of that there's a lot of people that are there specifically state outright, we are here to exploit these savage, ignorant people, and we don't care what they think, and which is
sounds familiar.
Accurate to the thing. But
sounds
like the
familiar.
thing is, when you're playing, so like as you start to get into the new area and you sort of learn how you have to kind of navigate the politics of the various factions, it's a lot easier to try and keep everybody happy.
Okay.
And just sort of like don't rock the boat, sort of like roll through it that way. But the trick is like if you do that, you're gonna end up doing a lot of stuff that you really aren't morally comfortable with.
Like what?
Like you'll have like Inquisition people just hunting down people and like cutting their throats, or like for reasons that are just like you disagreed with what I think about whatever religion scripture thing that like we've decided to call super sacred today. Or the like a mining company that's like exploiting an area and like not compensating the natives because they don't care what they think, or things like that. And you can't. There's always like at least 3 different ways to solve pretty much every quest. It's very.
That's impressive.
It's actually very Deus Ex in that like, and they do like a marker thing that'll show you like, okay, you got to get in this warehouse and do this thing, and like you'll be like, okay, I got to do that. Now you could like one early one, you have to go. You have to go into a warehouse because you're trying to smuggle like a certain crates onto your ship, and you have to go in and basically clear the warehouse so your guys can move those crates in and as part of the established cargo, and they'll just get in with the cargo. But to do that, you have to get through get rid of the guards of the warehouse, and the guards are of the Naut Guild, which are the sailor guild. And they nautical, yeah. They control that area. So like, okay, so to get in, you can sneak in and or you can walk up and just kill them. And the Nauts don't like that. If you do that, you'll lose reputation. But you can do that. You can sneak past them if you're sneaky enough and get through the back and go up and change the manifest and basically sneak the stuff in that way. You can disguise yourself as a Naut with the right clothing if you found sailor clothing, and go up and pretend you're with them and share a drink with them. And if you have the science ability, you can brew a sleeping potion that will put the guards to sleep, and then you can bring those in. And the way I did it is I walked up in my sailor outfit, and I had enough charisma to convince them that I was their relief. That I was relieving them.
You're the
and
next
they're like,
guy
oh,
on
thank
ship.
God. And they left. And I'm like, okay, bring it in, boys. Like, so there were 4 different ways to solve that.
Most of the quests that way?
Almost all of them have that, yes.
Wow, that's impressive.
I mean, the heretic thing, 3 different ways to solve that. You
Wow.
could either arrest them, you could talk to your other friend, the ambassador, and give them asylum, or you just let them go and pretend you never saw them. Stuff like that. So every single like noted quest has had at least 3 solutions that I could see.
That's impressive.
It is very impressive, and that continues in the new world area. And they're not all noted. Like if you want to find like the more subtle ways, you have to explore the area and hop over the fence and find, oh, I can do this. This wall is weak, so if I have science, I can like create an explosive that will blow the back of that building out, and that'll get me through here, and I can sneak through that way. There was an early one where you had to like basically like your cousin had busted up a bar the night before, and the bartender won't tell you where he knows where he ended up going, but he won't tell you until you pay him for the damages. But if you have the crafting skill, you can repair the table he broke. So
wow.
and save the money.
Crazy, man.
So it's that kind of thing. So it's actually way more freeform in terms of how you solve the quest than any BioWare game has ever been.
This game the art style looks like a cross between The Witcher and Bloodborne.
Yeah, I can see how you'd say that. Like it does feel a little Bloodborne-ish in the sense of kind of the aesthetic. The thing about it is, so you played the Technomancer enough to
yes, I did.
enough to know what I mean when I say that the character still has that spider's stickiness.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they're called spiders. The character
unintentionally
kind of they move a little too long after you push the stick to be comfortable. Turning around feels very laborious because like you'll see there when they stop moving, they have that sort of like jog to a halt thing.
Yeah.
Like that
Momentum
takes forever.
That's
a
very touchy thing.
And you
to have
can't
in
move
games.
the other direction until you finish doing that animation, so it feels very stop and go. And the other thing is, it only registers as a full. You can walk, and you can run, and then you can sprint if you hold a button. Now running, it only registers as running if you are holding exactly the cardinal direction of the direction that you're facing. The problem with that is when I play games like this, I like to look around with the camera and still be running. So I'm kind of like taking the sights in as I'm looking left and forth. But I'm still running the direction I'm running. But the thing is that when you move the camera and change the orientation, if you don't keep the analog stick exactly oriented with the direction your character is facing, it stops registering as running and changes to walking.
Yeah.
And I find that really annoying. So the thing is,
that's a spider's.
It is a spider. Like the Technomancer controlled like that, Mars Warlocks controlled like that. It bugs me more in this one for some reason. I think it's because
there's more to see.
There's more to
stuff
see.
You want to see.
The world is so well realized, and the game feels so close to what BioWare used to do before the doctors retired.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what I think the change is. Not so
oh
much
yeah,
EA.
for sure.
But like, that's where it feels sort of like, oh, if this character just controlled a little snappier, this would be like Game of the Year territory.
I mean, Spiders has been on that cusp
for
a long time.
And I don't understand.
I mean, I still don't know why I played Technomancer for like 70 hours.
Yeah,
like,
it's engaging in almost in spite of itself.
They're great at creating worlds that you care about and people that you care about.
Yeah.
But when the rubber hits the road and you play the game, that's where the caveats start to pop up.
The place they're really putting roadblocks in front of you is the basic gameplay.
Yeah.
To answer SJD Swanland's...
There I can see the plague on that girl's face.
To answer SJD Swanland's question, I played this on Xbox One X. It runs okay, but it's sluggish in places, and there's a lot of screen tearing in some of the cutscenes, which is weird.
That's on par for Spiders. I mean, it's just...
It's also on par. It's also on par for Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
That's a good point. That's
a lot of the same problems in Ghost Recon Breakpoint's beta are in this.
Yeah. Now,
to be fair, this is a final release and that's a beta.
Right.
But it's not game.
My guess is that will also be in the final version of Breakpoint.
Probably, yeah.
My question is, a lot of the gameplay we've been watching, it has several party members fighting with you.
Yes.
How does that work? I'm guessing those people aren't online and they're not real humans.
Of course not. No, it's a single player game only, as it should be. Those just like BioWare. It's just like Mass Effect. Those are your party members. They fight alongside you when a fight happens, which doesn't happen that often. I've been in like
combat's pretty low.
I've been in like 6 or 7 fights in the whole course of like 4 hours of playing.
Wow.
I mean, there would have been more fights if I hadn't talked my way out of stuff.
Yeah.
But like in terms of like having to fight, not that common, which is pretty good because the fighting's not great. Like It's a melee combat system for the most part, although you can use spells and firearms. I am a melee focused like class. Because I do generally prefer to play like magic stuff. But my caveat to that is that when I'm playing a game I don't fully trust to be competent, I tend to go with melee, like kind of your base fighter, because like usually they get that right.
Yeah, because that's the first character that they like tune and make sure
exactly,
because that's what most people play.
So it's working okay, but like it's kind of got it's not a brain dead combat system. There's a parry system where like you have to like parry and then riposte, and there's an armor system. You have to get through their armor before you do damage to their health, which is pretty simple.
Do you actually knock the armor off?
No, you just there's little like shield icons, and it'll say like unbalanced or stunned or armor broken or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. Like once you upgrade the sword a couple times, which I mean, I highly recommend picking craftsman early on as one of your early skills, because it lets you like craft stuff and craft upgrade. You can craft upgrades for your armor that give you other skills.
Interesting.
So like I was annoyed that I didn't have lockpick. Because I couldn't pick locks, and then I looked at my upgrade thing for my armor, and there's this on my sash. I could put a thing that gave me +1 lockpick, and another thing that gave me +1 science. So I didn't need to pick those skills if I had craftsman. It was a very interesting way to balance that, because you don't get points for those the talent tree. You get those like every 5 levels or something. It's very rare, so you have to really pay attention. And like you really want craftsman, because that lets you like craft stuff and sort of keep ahead of the game on your armor. And you really want vigor, because vigor lets you regenerate health.
How much control do you have over your party members? Can you set them up and tell them what you want to do?
You can tell them what to do
on the fly.
You can tell them what to do, like you do in BioWare. You have there is a real-time pause thing, like with Dragon Age, where if you want to go in and micromanage everything per character, you can. It's not turn-based; it is action-based, but you can affect how they behave. And you can go into pause and choose items to use and set things up like that. So if you want to play it more tactically, you can. I have not found a need for that so far. In fact, the only serious fight that I've been in was the first boss fight, which was against a giant monster that I literally dodged to the side around and hit him in the butt like for like a minute and a half, and he died. Like I was never even touched in the whole thing.
So it's not a particularly challenging.
I have not found it particularly challenging, especially once I upgraded my sword so I could penetrate armor better. And now instead of guys dying in like 17 hits, they die in like 3. And I'm sure that will change as I go through
there's
go
ebbs
through
and
the
flows
new areas and such. But like I have not found it especially challenging. I have not. I don't find it. It's not like Dragon Age Origins, where like if you're playing on above normal, you are going to need to plan your stuff out properly or you're going to die. Like this feels like a pretty easily balanced sort of, like, as long as you're paying attention. And I would also recommend focusing on one character at a time, one enemy at a time. Like that seems to help, is focusing your firepower. I mean, that's a basic RPG thing, but it's not always obvious in an action game. I haven't had an issue with it. Like I'm pretty melee focused, so I don't know how the magic works. But you can pick whatever you want. Like there's no you start as whatever the 3 classes. There's like a melee class, magic class, and I think like a agility tactical thing. It gives you like an alchemist or some shit like that, which is a mix of various things. But you can upgrade to whatever skills you want. Like you're not locked into your class at all.
Is this a full price game?
Yes. And
it's PC, PS4, Xbox One.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's a Switch version of this yet.
No, I wouldn't want to see what they do to this on the Switch. Frankly.
Yeah.
It barely runs as it is on the Xbox One X.
Yeah, it sounds like it's holding on by its fingernails.
Yeah, it's a functional but not particularly reliable 30 frames a second.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Look, you
and some of that's hard to gauge because the character is so sluggish in places that I'm not always sure.
You're like, is that a frame rate?
I'm like, is the frame rate dropping, or is this just spiders? I don't know.
So you haven't played. I mean, you played a handful of hours of it.
Yeah.
Based upon that, are you compelled to keep going forward?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You think you're gonna stick with this?
I'm definitely gonna stick with it until I can't tolerate it any further. But I mean, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I'm very interested in the characters and like the world and like the decisions and how each quest unfolds and what I can do in each quest. And it has not bored me yet. It has annoyed me at times, and it has made me kind of facepalm here and there with how like they just don't seem to get any better at certain things. But in terms of storytelling and voice acting and sort of quest design and world design, this is the best they've ever done by far. And give them one more game after this, and maybe put in someone who knows how a character should move properly.
I feel like we've said that about the studio.
We
before.
have, and I don't know why. I don't know what. Have you played another third-person game? Because this should be pretty simple.
Yeah.
With another round of refinement on this, like they could churn out a Mass Effect 2. I think they could.
I think this studio is very ripe for purchase.
Definitely.
I'm kind of surprised that Microsoft has not already, because this is right in the wheelhouse.
If I were Microsoft, I would buy these guys tomorrow.
Because
give them some kind of
guidance.
Control guy.
I feel like that's what this studio needs.
Send someone from Ninja Theory over there to tell them what smooth means. I don't know. Something.
It just needs that Western support. I mean, they're from the West, but...
Right, but the Eurojank is strong.
Yeah, they need someone in the U.S. who's going to give them some money and some time to put that extra layer on, and they need someone to tell them what that extra layer is.
Right.
Because we have been saying this about Spiders for its last, 3 or 4 games now. We're like, the next one. It's the next one that's going to be the 8 out of 10, the 9 out of 10.
Well, there'll be 3 games, because I think they've only made 3 games.
Well, they made... Didn't they make something before Technomancer, though?
Mars Warlogs.
Oh, that was before Technomancer. I thought that was a sequel to Technomancer.
No,
Technomancer
is the sequel to that.
I had them flipped. Yeah, okay. Gotcha. And I knew they had made something before Technomancer, so I thought that was the extra
This is
game.
not super far off Technomancer, except in the sense of the combat's very different, and the world is just the ambition of the world they're doing here is beyond anything they've done before in to an order of magnitude.
But this is definitely going to get a sequel.
I would think so.
Even if it doesn't sell particularly well, you can just see it's done a great job of building this world. Mm-hmm. It's a compelling world. It's something I'm interested in.
It doesn't look like anything else except maybe Bloodborne.
Yep, I have a review code sitting in my inbox, and I didn't know if I was going to play it. I thought about maybe just giving the code away, but after talking to you about it, I am going to play it.
You could actually see there the armor things go away up top.
Yeah.
So you see how once there's 3 armor shields that are empty now on the boss's life bar. Once those went away, the life damage on the bar doubled.
Right. Okay.
So that's kind of what they're doing, and then that will regenerate as you get out of combat. And then you can see she has kind of electricity around her hands. That's a fury move, so you can use the left trigger, and that'll be a guaranteed hit. They're trying to make the combat something with some depth and interest, but I just don't feel like it gets there.
Good.
It doesn't
Their
feel good to play.
combat never feels good.
Well, the other weird thing is the tutorial has you up against guys that aren't going to hurt you, but also you can't really hurt them, so it's hard to see that you're doing anything of use against them. It's not until you get in your first real fight that you really understand how it works.
Gotcha.
And then it's a lot simpler than it maybe felt like it was in the tutorial.
So people are wondering, do they buy this, Matt?
I mean,
especially within the time frame that it's coming out.
If you like the old school BioWare stuff and sort of the Deus Ex style, immersive sim open-ended quest design, and you can handle some jank, I don't miss this one. So far, this is delivering exactly what I hoped, except for obviously we always hope that Spiders is going to revamp their character movement system. That hasn't really happened here. But other than that, this is the best BioWare game in years.
You can't get a better endorsement than that, people. So there you go. That's GreedFall, full price game, PC, PS4, Xbox One.
Yeah, honestly, give these guys Mass Effect.
Wow. Brave, Kyle.
Can't be worse than Andromeda.
I don't know. One thing I would say Andromeda that was good was the gameplay.
Yeah.
It felt great to play.
That's the one thing that Andromeda did well.
So what they really need to do is they need to merge these two teams together, and then they have the perfect action RPG.
Yeah.
Make it happen, EA.
There you go.
EA would never buy this.
EA wouldn't. No. EA would
definitely not happening. Go Hunt Rageax is actually made by BioWare. No, it's not. It's made by a team called Spiders.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like we've said Spiders 100 times.
Spiders.
All right. It's time to move on. We're going to talk next about Nintendo. I feel like we haven't talked about Nintendo. Well, no, the Direct was last week, and we had a pretty big section.
We talk about Nintendo all the time.
You know what? You're right. I try to get all 3 platforms and PC into the show every episode. So when I'm putting topics together for GameFace and I look at them and I'm making some tough cuts, I'll say, okay, do we have anything for the people who really like Nintendo this week? And so I do try to make sure there's something for everyone in every episode of GameFace. We did talk extensively about the Direct last week. We're going to talk this week about Nintendo's Blue Ocean strategy. We've heard so much about Nintendo's Blue Ocean strategy from Nintendo itself. That was its calling card when it announced the Wii. It's like, we're going Blue Ocean. Everyone else is in the Red Ocean getting eaten by the sharks. We're going to go into our own patch of water where there's nobody else, and we can do our own thing.
That was just a stealth way of announcing Endless Ocean.
Yeah. I think at first people thought it worked because the Wii was such a huge success. But ultimately, Nintendo moved a lot of hardware, but did not move a ton of software.
No.
I mean, obviously, Wii Sports sold out the butt, and some of the...
Well, yeah, because they came with a system.
Right, but even after that, they sold it separately.
Wii Sports and Wii Play were your two big hits because people wanted the extra controller that came in Wii Play.
That came in Wii Play. Yeah.
And I have always said with no actual statistical backing that my bet would be at least 50% of all the Wiis on the planet never played anything other than Wii Play and Wii Sports.
I would agree with that as well. And so the other part of the Blue Ocean strategy was its handheld strategy. The DS, the 2DS, the 3DS, 2 screens, and then 3D, and with a touch screen. And that was very successful for Nintendo on both counts, on hardware sales and software sales. But since then...
And the DS is still the most successful system of all time.
Right, yeah. But since then, things have changed. It feels like Nintendo has stopped swimming in the blue ocean to swim in the blood-infested waters with everybody else with Switch. Would you agree with that?
No.
No? What is blue ocean about Switch?
Well, nothing's blue ocean about it except for the fact that the others don't consider competition.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that counts as blue ocean, but, like, clearly Microsoft is not threatened by the Switch. And I think Sony would say that the Switch is not their competition because they're just not putting out the same kind of games.
Do you believe that, or do you think that's a convenient way for these other guys to say, we're not really getting our butts kicked by Nintendo?
I believe it, without question. Like something like 60% of Switch owners, it's their second system.
So what spurred this on is this trailer we're watching right now.
This thing.
Which is this weird exercise band thing.
I feel like they let the guys who worked on the Wii out of the closet or something. It's like,
this has like Wii Fit and all that other crap all over it.
Whatever basement they were keeping these guys in, they're like, all right, fine, you can come design a peripheral. They're like, you put cardboard on the system. You're like, okay, come on.
So what happened was I saw this trailer, and there's more information coming on this on the 12th, on Thursday at TGS. And I watched this, and I'm like, this feels like Wii era Nintendo.
Oh, yeah, this is like Wii Fit vibes for sure.
Yeah. And I think what struck me the hardest, though, was that I didn't have this idea of Nintendo anymore since Switch launched. This to me was not something that Nintendo does anymore.
See, I don't agree with that because we have had Labo. I mean, that's pretty... Nintendo periodically does these weird, off-the-wall things. And I'm not saying this is like Labo, because Labo is obviously a very different audience. It's for younger kids and kind of like the more crafty stuff. But this is the same kind of... This like, hey, let's use this hardware for a more inventive or more out-of-the-box way of... I mean, obviously, out-of-the-box is a weird way to describe Labo because it's made of boxes.
It is a box.
but like out-of-the-box thinking in terms of like, hey, let's just see if we can do this weird thing. And that does go back to, honestly, I think that goes back before the Wii. I mean, the connectivity thing was bizarre. Like, it was the same... they've always loved doing these
I think the connectivity thing, they made it seem more bizarre than it really was.
Well, the bizarre part of the connectivity thing was that, like, first you had to say...
thought it was a good idea?
Yeah, well, first you had to say connectivity. That's such a weird word. But the other thing is, like, you were counting on people to buy so many peripherals and have so many GBAs
extras,
and have so many... And, like, once you got all that together and played, like, Pac-Man Versus, it was great.
Yeah.
Or
but
Crystal Chronicles wasn't great, but it worked. But the barrier was huge. But they've always kind of had this thing where, like, we want to do, like, a weird hardware thing that lets you play in a way that you can't play on other systems. Like, that's always been kind of their MO.
The vitality
and,
sensor.
The vitality sensor never happened. And I mean, that was at the heart of the Wii. Like the waggle was at the heart of the Wii. It's heart of the Wii U with the extra screen, kind of trying to double down on what the DS did. And it's really at the heart of the Switch in the sense that like no other system lets you go take something on the go and then plug it back in and play it on a TV. I mean, that's still sort of the pedigree is still there. It's just not as wild.
Yeah.
This, on the other hand, does seem to be kind of going back to their roots as like, here's a batshit peripheral that like you can't really figure out when you just watch the trailer, but once you get your hands on it, it'll make sense.
I mean, Labo has not done well.
It's done well enough to keep going. Like I don't know what.
They probably have a team of like 10 guys working on Labo.
I mean, how much could that take, really? You know?
Right. It's not a big investment to keep it going, but I mean, if you
but
look
Nintendo
at
seems
sales,
to like having those things around.
Yeah, but
I'm surprised that that's still stocked on shelves, frankly.
I me too, because it takes up a lot of space.
Yeah.
And so Labo did not do well financially. And you're right, that was the closest thing, in my opinion, in the Switch era that they had to some kind of a blue ocean idea. But
look at all these Wii U things that never happened.
I know. But that's what Nintendo does. It throws a bunch of crap against the wall. It gets fans excited, and then it either never comes out, or when it does come out, it's completely different from what they originally showed.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't always the case back when I felt like it was a blue ocean company. Like, it did do motion gaming, motion control gaming. That was a blue ocean strategy, to control something besides an analog stick and buttons. That was revolutionary to me. I mean, the Wii was called the Revolution.
Literally the code name.
That was the code name of the Wii. And I feel like Nintendo's got away from that, and I think it's the right idea. Because if you look at the Switch, sure, you can plug it in and it plays as a console. Pactor doesn't even look at it as a console. He literally just calls it a handheld. Because it's kind of going that way with the light and everything else. So
until the Pro comes out,
I guess.
I mean, if the patent leak was right for the Lite, the Pro, whatever we're calling it, but the Pro was also part of that. So.
See, I don't look at the Switch as blue ocean. I look at it as innovative, and there's a difference between innovative and blue ocean. Blue ocean is doing something no one ever dreamed of. Innovation is using existing paradigms and working them in a way that no one else thought of.
Yeah, I mean, I think blue ocean is the PR bullshit.
It is. It is.
Innovation is
but it was a mantra that Nintendo operated its business by. And I feel like...
When was the last time they said that, though?
Oh, they still say it.
Do they?
Oh, Nintendo still thinks it's in the blue ocean. I think it just did that with the Lite. I think the Switch Lite, it was actually meant, that phrase was actually mentioned in like the trailer for it. So, to me, the best Nintendo...
Well, they clearly are working off a different blue ocean definition than we are then, because there's nothing... No one has ever done this before about a handheld system.
No, I mean, also, if you remember, the PSP Go, you could plug that into a cradle, and it had a cable that you could plug into your TV.
Video out.
It's not even, Switch isn't even all that innovative.
I mean, the Switch innovation is the convenience and the ease of it.
Right.
It's the speed.
So to me, the Switch has not been a blue ocean thing for Nintendo, as flimsy as that descriptor is.
I mean, I still don't think that just because they're not doing blue ocean in that regard anymore means they're in the same ocean as Sony and Microsoft.
But what I'm getting at is the closer Nintendo has come to swimming in those same waters, the more successful it has been and it has become. Nintendo is doing very well right now because it's supplying a ton of software to its platform. Sure, you can play it handheld or docked or whatever, but it's supplying a lot of software to its platform. It has a platform that is easy to develop for and easy to port other games to. Therefore, it's getting a lot more third-party support and indie support. So, to me, the closer Nintendo goes to the mean, which I think a lot of people would also argue getting closer to the mean would be producing hardware that's more powerful than what it's producing right now. Mm-hmm. The closer it gets to the mean, the more successful it is. The more mainstream Nintendo's platforms are, the more successful they are. Look back.
Yeah, but I would say that they can only go so far with that, because once you put yourself in direct competition with Sony, you're kind of back in the same boat again. That pushed them into that blue ocean strategy in the first place. Now, I don't know if Sony is the monolith that they were in the PS2 era. They probably certainly aren't. I think if there's one thing we've learned over, say, the last 3 generations or even 4 generations, if you want to include Nintendo's lesson at the hands of Sony, nobody's invincible in the console space.
Well, I think Microsoft just learned that.
Oh, yeah,
after
for sure.
the transition from 360 to 1. Yeah.
I think there's a non-zero chance Sony's about to learn that again.
It might forward. Possibly. Yeah.
But, like, I do think Nintendo's strength on the Switch has been, it hasn't just been moving away from that, like, stupid human tricks element of the Blue Ocean strategy.
Yeah.
I think it's also knowing where to stop, like where to not. It annoys the hell out of me that this system is so underpowered and that Zelda doesn't look better and that this, that kind of thing. But it's also sort of the strength because it keeps them out of the line of fire of the competition. It gets them the cooperation of Microsoft, which has obviously benefited them and will probably benefit them even more moving forward. Whether that might have happened anyway because Microsoft seems less interested in getting you to own Xbox hardware and more interested in getting you into the Xbox ecosystem, no matter how you get there. Maybe that wouldn't have mattered. But I think keeping out of the line of fire of Sony and just doing their own thing is sort of like this. They're riding that line, and it's really working for them. And also, I think you've seen just from software sales that like the fan base doesn't care that it's not like perfect 4K all the time. They just want the games and they want them, and it's kind of a good enough thing. And really, that was sort of the heart of the DS success too. Is like, was that the most powerful thing? Was the best way to play everything? No, but it was giving you things you couldn't get anywhere else. That was the only place I could play like GBA and DS were the only places I could play these Castlevania games. Mm-hmm. That was enough for me. The Mega Man X, the Mega Man Zero games. Fire Emblem stuff, and now Switch kind of not only takes over sort of the Blue Ocean idea of like, hey, you can be handheld or you can be, we got this stupid human trick stuff going on with the Labo and with this, what is it called? The ring thing?
Oh, they don't have a name for it.
There's no name
yet? It's just called like New Fitness Initiative, and I think they're going to unveil the name of it on Thursday.
I hope it's not actually called Ring Thing.
That might be a better name than Nintendo actually comes up with.
It's gonna be a word like amiibo that means nothing.
Don't forget the Vitality sensor.
Well, at least that never came out.
But,
there's like VR companies that are working on something very similar too to that.
Well, now Nintendo's also, there's a bunch of patents.
Another patent on that. Do you see the third-party patent for the ones that the Joy-Cons that fold back?
Was that third party? I thought that was Nintendo's.
Maybe I'm thinking there was another third-party one that was like oversized Joy-Cons.
Well, the new patent for Joy-Cons from Nintendo was they were bigger and they folded down. Yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
Oh, it's a great idea. I think it's a brilliant idea. But that's not Blue Ocean.
No. Folding is the new hotness, though.
It is.
Samsung's trying to get that out in your phone now.
Yeah, I think everybody thought Apple was going to show off a folding phone today, but
nope, just Apple TV.
Yeah,
Plus.
And an iPhone 11, I guess.
The iPhone 11's fine and all, but it's just like, why would you get that when it's not 5G ready?
Now, I'm glad you brought up Apple actually, because Apple, on the flip side, the more Blue Ocean it is, the more successful it is.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think in one industry it's more acceptable?
I just think the cults want different things for each company, basically.
Yeah.
And I also think Apple's fan base is more starved for
something
new and something that makes it feel like the old Apple,
where
the Jobs era Apple. Whereas Nintendo, I think, has done a better job of continuing sort of the tone and objectives that Iwata established before he passed away. And I feel like they've continued to kind of respect his plan for the Switch and kind of for Nintendo moving forward. And it's all working. Because let's not forget that Iwata, whatever you may think of him, was a brilliant businessman.
Oh, yeah.
And knew exactly what Nintendo needed to do next.
Yep.
And I think you're seeing that pay off moving forward. And really the best thing with for Nintendo right now is that their new leadership is willing to sit back and say, Iwata had this. We're just going to keep doing what he recommended until we see a reason to change.
We run out of his ideas,
until we see
and
a
then
reason
we're
to change.
Screwed.
Pretty much. They already lost Reggie. Reggie's going back to Cornell.
Before
I want to see Reggie. I'd love to see Reggie's first day at Cornell, teaching at Cornell. He's like, I'm Professor Reggie Fils-Aimé. I'm here to
kick ass and hand out Fs.
Kick ass and take roll.
Kick ass and hand out Fs and Ds.
But
do you agree with my assertion?
Whereas I think Apple, like you're chasing the ghost of Steve Jobs, who like innovated in a different way from Iwata because his thing was just sort of like, you tried to make a thing and you brought it to Steve Jobs and he'd tell you out of his own fevered brain whether it was good or bad or the right thing or whatever, whereas Iwata was a more straightforward planner.
Yeah.
So there's an advantage there. Also, like, I think you can't really just go back and dredge up old IP from from early Apple days. Like, you can't just make an iMac again.
Right. Yeah.
But you can make
you can't remaster an iMac.
No, you can't. You can make a back to basics Mario game though that sets everybody on fire.
Yeah.
It's
well, you let people make their own Mario
content creation versus hardware creation, because like the hardware creation is part of Nintendo's strategy, but really they only have to do it once every few years.
Yeah.
Whereas Apple has to continually figure out a way to get you to spend another $1,200 on a phone you already own.
So what do you think is the smartest path forward for Nintendo?
I think just keep doing what they're doing. Frankly,
you think you should keep having an underpowered platform compared to the competition?
I mean,
I feel like
for my personal selfish wants, I wish their next system would be as powerful as a PS5.
Do you think it will be successful that way, though?
I don't know. See, that's the thing, is I don't know if it would be. I think they're more guaranteed success if they keep doing kind of the half as powerful thing, but also the half as expensive thing. Like if you.
But they're not really half.
They're not half as expensive here, but they will be next gen.
Yeah.
If they keep that curve. That
well,
power
when
curve going.
Next year when the new consoles come out, it will be half price,
right?
Because the Switch will be $250, and the new consoles I think will be at least $500. So, yeah, I guess after a few years, I mean, they're kind of lucky that they're in the off cycle, so they can come in with like a new platform in the middle of the cycle for everybody else. But to me, I don't know. I think having I don't see how Nintendo having a console as powerful as PS5 and Xbox 2 or Scarlet, whatever it ends up being called, I just can't ever see where that would be a bad thing. Nintendo's games looking good as possible, to me, is always going to generate more money.
I mean, yeah, but like at the same time, they haven't needed it. So why up that cost? Like, I think as from a business standpoint, I mean, personally, I would love Metroid Prime 4 to look as good as Halo 5.
Yeah.
But like, I'm the weird exception in that. Like,
I don't think you're weird, man.
I think I am. I think
I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure the Nintendo faithful would also pay $500-$600 for the next Nintendo system, but that's not going to get you the sales that the Switch has. Like,
I think again,
especially when you've got the Switch also had an advantage. I think that it came in so late in the gen that no one was saving money for a console. It was late in the gen, but it wasn't so late in the gen that everybody was trying to save money for a new console. They were willing to jump in on that Switch. Forget $300 is not. Was it $350? $300?
Yeah.
It was like was it $350 or $300?
$300.
$350?
$300 for Switch. It launched $300, I believe.
Like, that's not a huge
outlay.
Huge jump in.
Except it was
3-4
the same as what the PS4 was costing at that.
But
moment.
it was what 3 years after you'd bought that.
Yeah.
So was it 3 or?
Yeah, I mean
4?
they haven't really dropped the price on the latest like Gen 8 consoles.
Not too much. And
not at the rate they used to.
The Switch hasn't. I mean, look, the touchscreen on the Switch is going to keep that price at a certain point no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same reason the Wii U never really dropped in price, even though it was, you'd think there would have been a fire sale clearance on those things at some point, but instead Nintendo just bought them all back from the retailers.
Yep.
Which is, again, why I'm so pleased to see them moving Wii U exclusives forward onto the Switch and, of course, by extension, future Nintendo systems, because eventually those Wii U gamepads are going to stop working and you will never be able to play those games again.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to work.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if you just look at Nintendo's history, every time it has gotten close to the competition, it seems to do better. When it even went back in the SNES.
I don't know if that's true of the N64. I mean, the thing about
it was ahead of the curve there, though, with the N64. It didn't make a console of equal power to PlayStation 1. It was more powerful, and at least in some ways.
It depends on what you wanted. I mean,
there's no denying it could compute more. It was a more powerful system.
Yeah, but it didn't have the AV capabilities that CDs gave the PlayStation 1, so they kind of went in a weird direction with that. But, I mean, the real argument against that is the GameCube, which was on par with the other systems of the generation and just didn't do anything. It didn't get
Yeah.
anywhere. Even though I would argue that in a lot of cases, I think even if it wasn't the most powerful system, which I think is still debatable,
Yeah.
I think GameCube had the best image quality
I agree.
of the three systems that
Yeah.
gen. Even with the Xbox's power, like there's nothing that looks as sharp as Rogue Leader or Metroid Prime or Mario Sunshine. I don't even like Mario Sunshine, but Mario Sunshine is a gorgeous game. And that always frustrated me about the Wii and the Wii U was kind of that step back in image quality.
Yeah. The Wii looked terrible.
Which the Switch doesn't.
Even with component cables, it looked terrible.
Oh, I mean, even if Xenoblade Chronicles was just a straight remaster and not like a remake the way they're doing it, like it's not a full remake, but they're redoing everything. Like they're not just up-resing the textures and calling it a day. I would still buy it. It was just a straight remaster because that game, even in its original Wii form, like if you run it on the Dolphin emulator, that game's gorgeous. If you put it through, if you put it through an image quality.
All those games look gorgeous on Dolphin. It's crazy.
Super Mario Galaxy, like I'd love to have all those things move forward. But anyway,
Vincent brings up a good point. He says if Nintendo's next console is as powerful as the other ones, the games will take longer to make.
Yeah. I mean, one would hope that kind of the moving away from the two pillar development system, like now, and I think you're already seeing that where like the Switch's
dividends. Yeah.
The Switch's release schedule is full of stuff almost every month.
Yep.
So like you're finally seeing that like if you concentrate their release schedule from the handhelds and the consoles and put them on one system, you've got a full schedule of things all year. So that's finally working for them.
Having the architecture of their platform be such a way that it's very easy to port other games over instead of having to code to the metal like a lot of old Nintendo platforms worked. I think that's a huge advantage as well.
Oh, for sure.
Being able to have somebody work with like an Unreal Engine and not have to like constantly call you to consult on how to get features to work because it's just all there in the API. Huge difference from the way Nintendo used to operate.
I just think I think the time to make the Nintendo system as powerful as the Sony system is something that Nintendo has to kind of make a kind of basically eyeball.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's this generation. I don't think it is. I think the Switch's successor should be still a smooth curve in power up from the Switch. It shouldn't be it shouldn't be a Scarlet. It shouldn't be a PS5. It should be Switch 2. Whatever that works out to.
I mean, look,
because right now the lack of third-party support is not really hurting them. I don't know if that will eventually hurt them. Like that's a thing that Nintendo needs to use their own market research to determine is if there's going to hit a point where the fact that they do not have multi-platform library parity is going to be a sales depressant. I don't think it's definitely not happening on the Switch, and I don't think it's.
I don't think
in
you
the near
know
future.
if it's happening on the Switch. I mean, the Switch is doing great, but it could it be doing even better?
Well, that's just like brainless capitalist thinking. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like if you're already having that kind of success after 2 generations of subpar behavior, especially the Wii U, but also I don't think they're as happy with the Wii as people believe they would be, because while the Wii did sell crazy volumes of hardware, software just did not sell on that thing.
Yeah, I know.
And like they have to be happier with the Switch and how much software it sells, because you've got attach rates on this thing in the 80% for the big games, whereas like for Mario Galaxy, one of the best Mario games ever, it was like 8 to 10%, which is crazy.
It is crazy.
So this is a much more all-around successful gambit. Is power holding them back? Like, it doesn't seem like it. I mean, you could kind of say, maybe they could be doing much better, but then you just sound like an overachiever parent at that point.
Well, I mean, as a business, you want to be an overachiever.
Because maybe that's something you'd say to a kid who's getting like C's. I don't think Nintendo's getting C's right now.
No, definitely not. It's doing an amazing.
I mean, they're dominating the charts every freaking month. It's like it just feels like kind of that. It feels like an extension of that infinite growth idea. It's like you just came off the Wii U. The Wii U was a really bad stumble. You lost your president due to tragic circumstances, but you're doing really well. Let's not completely revamp the strategy right now.
So you're saying don't rock the boat?
I wouldn't rock the boat right now if I were Nintendo.
So do you think Blue Ocean stuff is rocking the boat and is a bad idea?
For now, maybe, but like it's like I don't think this the disc thing, the hoop.
Yeah, there's no name for it. The fitness ring.
Like I don't think the the Fula Hoop, or whatever you want to call it.
That's a great name for it, the Fula Hoop.
I don't think this is gonna like mean that we don't get
there it is
a real video game like in October. Hoop. You know what I mean? Like DMX.
No, probably the same team that was working on Labo is working on this crap.
Yeah, or like
if you look at the software that was
team.
actually available for Labo, like it was all like lowbrow crap.
Yeah, like I definitely don't feel like this is taking the place of a mainstream quote unquote game. You know what I mean? So I feel like if you want to put stuff like this out on the Switch periodically and that makes you feel good about your brand, cool. Like it gets you, this is going to get them non-industry press. It's going to get them, mainstream press almost certainly because mainstream outlets love to report on like the weird
dumb crap.
Yeah, exactly. Nintendo or otherwise. And of course, because Nintendo has a history of this, Labo got write-ups in mainstream things.
Yeah.
And this, at the very least, if I see this as like a news editor at like a local news thing, and I see this trailer, hell yeah, that's going on tonight because it looks ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not as compelling as a lot of the other stuff Nintendo's done. I would argue it's not even as compelling as Labo.
But watching people make fools of themselves in the trailer is enough to get this some airtime, I think.
Yeah.
But it doesn't interfere. The problem with like kind of the Wii era was like when they put out something weird like that, like Wii Music. That took the place of the game that quarter.
Yeah, they were big games for
like
Nintendo.
There were stretches of 6 to 9 months where nothing came out from Nintendo.
You're only getting
on
like
Wii
Fit Plus, and like all this other motion control crap.
And then you get Jeff Keighley asking Reggie where the games are, and
Reggie being
Reggie's
like, "What are you talking about?
Well, you got Animal Crossing." This is like, bro,
you're not getting it, Reg. You're not getting it. I would contend that Nintendo, I think the path that it's on right now is the right path. And so when I saw this, to me, it was kind of a red flag. I was like, this doesn't really jive anymore with what Nintendo's doing right now. To me, it doesn't.
I don't think it does, but it also doesn't interfere with what they're doing. So if that's what a thing they want to like make a continually part of their brand, sure. Like it doesn't hurt me.
Yeah. So Nintendo Blue Ocean or no? Should it swim in a blue ocean or should it stay with everybody else in the red ocean?
I think they can do like these blue ocean products like this.
These little one-off things,
Circle Workle thing or whatever, but like the core of the Switch is not.
It's not
Blue Ocean. We're gonna do what we do really well. Like we make video games that people like, and we are going to make really good versions of those video games on this hardware that does a thing that people want. Done.
Okay.
Like that's not Blue Ocean. That's just
smart business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would prefer
like the Blue Ocean thing. I feel started because they realized after the GameCube generation that they could not compete with Sony as like sort of a multimedia platform, so they decided to go in a different direction. And to some degree that worked, but I think the Switch is a refinement of that strategy into like we don't have to go off and do crazy stuff because we lost the core gamers doing that, so we can come back and just
reinvent ourselves,
just
basically
do it well. Like that's like like this it ain't broken. You don't have to fix it, but you do have to execute.
Yeah. And
so I think that's what they've done with the Switch, and I think they do that over and over with every major software release, and they just have to keep the quality up. That's all.
Okay. All right.
Would I like it on a really more powerful system? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do I think that is the best business choice right now? Probably not. Wait and see what the PS5 and the Scarlet do.
I mean, Nintendo has that advantage of waiting to see what they do. And it could be even a case.
Like a spiders.
And look, I'm okay with 2 years later, the Nintendo platform coming out and being on parity with the two that came out 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
When the technology is cheaper and maybe Nintendo can afford it.
I don't think you're going to get that.
I don't either. Because it has to be a handheld.
Yeah.
And that's one thing Pactor is 1,000% on the money with Switch. It's a handheld. That's a big reason why it's selling as well as it is. Great software, sure. Nintendo always has great software. But it's a handheld, and I think the difference between GameCube and Switch, you're talking about, kind of going back to the mean didn't work out for GameCube. It was a console only. It wasn't a handheld. I think if Nintendo were to launch a hyper powerful just console, doomed. We'd love it.
But if you want to launch a hyper powerful console, but also launch the handheld, the light version, if you want to have like handheld and Switch version and dedicated console versions of all the same system, like all the software just works on it and it just scales,
And you had the
I'm
option
behind that.
Yeah, and you had the option.
You want to sell me like some boutique $500, $600 like Nintendo Super System? I'll buy that. I don't care. I don't care about the handheld stuff.
I'll be perfectly honest
totally
with you.
do that.
I mean, we're at the point with game graphics that, like, if Nintendo with its next piece of hardware just put out this hyper powerful thing and was like, "Look, this is our platform for the next 10 years," I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Because we've reached a point now where games look so good, you're gonna have to. It's the law of diminishing returns. You're gonna have to invest so much money for such a small incremental upgrade.
Once you get some ray tracing in there, I think you're
done.
You're pretty
You're
good for the
done.
next 10 years.
Like so.
Until Nvidia comes up with whatever the next thing is.
Whatever the next whiz bang effect is going to be. But I think Nintendo in particular could get away with that. They could put out something that's at the top of the curve or maybe a slight bump ahead, and they could keep that for 10 years. And I don't think a lot of people will complain about it. So it'll be interesting to see what it does. It's learned a lot of lessons.
I mean, they're almost doing that with the Switch because the Switch is basically a Tegra.
Yeah.
It's an NVIDIA Shield.
Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. It'll be interesting to see what Nintendo does. I have a feeling after we really get a good idea, and look, Nintendo's already working on the next platform. It's not like it's waiting for PS5 and Xbox 2 to come out before. It's already been. It was doing R&D on the Switch 2 before the Switch came out. There's not a ton of wiggle room. Although I would argue that of the three platform holders, Nintendo does have the most wiggle room as far as being able to be nimble and be able to change course more quickly than the other guys.
I think they definitely have the most room to choose what they're going to be next.
Yeah. I mean, Sony and Microsoft are kind of pigeonholed into you got to make a mega powerful console, and that's that.
Like, even though clearly Xbox is not as interested in selling hardware anymore, they still have to step up with the hardware. Like, the hardware still has to be there.
It has to. Yep.
So it's you're definitely seeing them kind of locked into what they're going to be.
Yep. So there you go. Blue Ocean versus Red Ocean for Nintendo. We'll see what it decides to do here. I think in probably the next 18 months, we'll start to hear some rumblings.
Purple Ocean.
Purple. I mean, that's kind of what it's in right now, I guess, huh? Yeah.
All comes back to the GameCube again.
Maybe that was the idea with the color. I mean, who else makes the default color of their console purple? Although they called it indigo or whatever the hell they called it.
Yep, whatever.
But anyway. All right, it's time to move on to our
lunchbox.
Yeah. It's time to move on to the last topic of episode 181, and that is Gears 5. Not Gears of War 5, Gears 5. Matt, you alluded earlier to the fact that it comes out today at retail.
Yeah.
So it's available now. But if you wanted to just spend a couple dollars, you could have been playing this game since like last Thursday.
Yeah. Or if you
pre-ordered it, I think you could have been
pre-ordered it, or if you just like got the free month of first month of Game Pass.
Right. Well, you had to have Game Pass Ultimate.
Yeah.
So I had Game Pass, and then it would have cost an extra $2 for 2 months of Ultimate. So
for a $90 game.
Right. Yeah. So basically people were able to spend like $12 to play Gears 5 early.
Yep.
Not just play it early.
Which, I mean, you paid for to some degree because there's a lot of tech problems here. But
yeah. So let's dig in here. Let's start talking about Gears 5. Did you like Gears 4?
I liked it okay.
Yeah.
It felt a little safe.
Yep.
And it had that usual Microsoft this gen thing of like the whole story was Act 1. It had that I told you this story to tell you this story thing going on where it's like, well, the next one will be the real story we wanted to tell, but we had to set it up with this. Now, to be fair, I'm not done with this game. I'm right at the end of Act 2 of 4. But it feels
I'm like almost done with Act 3. So
it feels so far that they actually did tell a story.
Yeah, I think the story in this is really good.
Yeah.
I also think the writing in this is really good.
It's definitely better. It's a step up than what they've done
I can't believe
before.
It's a Gears game.
Yeah.
Like, there's some genuinely touching moments in this game.
And there's some characters, and I remember their names, and they're not just Marcus and Dom. And like it was, they've like figured out something to do with Baird that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's Dell actually has a personality this time. They stepped it up, and it works.
I really like the story. I really like the characters in this. I feel like the characters actually have some depth and levels to them. Like, I'm like, where
I
did this
understand
come
why
from?
they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
They're not just big suits of armor.
It's not convoluted. It's not a big meathead plot. Like, it has touches of that.
Yeah. But the thing I like the most is that you really get a look at how this world works,
and how
which
it
you've
all
never
came
seen
to
before.
be.
Which you've never seen before.
They
and
fill in all kinds of backstory from like back when Cliffy was working on this franchise.
And there's like one of the interesting things about this one that I think they do certainly more than anyone else is that hurt.
Never even saw it coming. It just went from aiming down the sights to dead. Yeah.
The idea that Cliffy used to use to illustrate what the idea behind the aesthetic of Gears was destroyed beauty.
Yeah.
Which was the idea that like this was a beautiful planet with like amazing architecture and these gorgeous buildings, and like you were just going through the ruins of them. It was like we took these things, we made these beautiful things, and we just destroyed them.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is sort of as you've gone through the series, like this is humanity on another planet. Early on, the backstory was that this was one of Earth's colony worlds that was basically like thousands of years post-colony. And like basically humans had been on this planet for so long, they might as well have been on this planet from the beginning. Like they didn't even remember Earth.
What Earth was like. Yeah.
Now I think they've retconned that to be like this is just an alternate universe and this is where humans grew up, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because I like the idea that no one knew that the locusts were underground, but I think they've changed sort of the origin of the locusts to be like more of a science gone wrong thing, which they get into in Gears 4 and especially in this. But the interesting thing to me was always that like the COG was sort of like it was rulership that needed to be there because they were at war all this time, but also the COG kind of had a fascist sort of totalitarian look, and people were against it, and they just like were willing to abandon people to stranded during the war, and then like what happens to those people when the war is over, and they touch on that a little bit in 4, but in this one you get to what I think is fascinating is you get to see like undamaged cities they're in, and you walk through the halls of power at one point to meet with the first minister or whatever they call the leader of the COG, and you see what all this architecture looks like without the grime and the explosions and the damage on it. And like the fascinating element of that to me is I want to know more about this human race on this planet that is so focused on making these beautiful things but also does so many ugly things around it. Like the friction between those two things is really interesting. And I feel like Gears 5 is the first game in the series to pick that up and run with it. And I love that theme. And the fact that that's what they're doing with this is really great to me.
I mean, the story is really about her.
It is, yeah.
And her finding out
also really
where
smart,
she came from. And
really smart of them to figure out that that's the focus after Gears 4. Because look, JD, I don't dislike JD, but I don't like him.
He's
a little bland.
Like
There's not much to him.
When this game first started and you play as him, I was like, really? Yeah. I have to play as the worst character in this game?
I admit that because when you load up, everything's done kind of server setup sort of stuff. And I admit when I started the campaign, they show like the characters you can play. I admit I went to JD and tried to switch off him, and it said like one player has to play JD for this section of the campaign. I'm like, oh, fine.
I mean, they do jump around. You play as several.
Now, to be
characters.
fair, the thrust of the one act you play him as is that JD is an idiot.
Pretty much. And at the end of the act, he's basically exposed as an idiot. Yeah, which I appreciate. Like, I've never expected to have a story that I cared about in a Gears of War game.
Although it's also still it's more compelling than maybe we're making that out to be, because the things he's doing is sort of a thing that frankly, Marcus would have done in the original 3 games.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't work out as magically well for him.
I mean, that's part of the plot as well. Yeah. Is the dynamic between him and his dad, and him struggling to not be like his dad, and everyone else telling him, you're
totally your dad.
You are exactly like your dad.
By Act 2, you've got the same beard and the same lack of hair, and like this. I mean, you might as well just put the bandana on and be done with it.
I mean, let's be honest. As human beings, I think we all go through that.
Oh yeah.
Like my mom has a thing hanging in her bathroom that says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, I am my mother after all." And I think we all fight against trying to become what our parents, even though our parents may be awesome and great people, there's just like this intrinsic thing inside us that we don't want to just be carbon copies of our parents. And so I think that plot line in this game will resonate with a lot of people, because, you know, people still revere his dad and people respect the crap out of his dad. But even with that, he's still like, no, I'm my own person. I want to be my own man. But ultimately, time and time again, the plot twists, and there he is again, acting just like Pops.
Yeah, and all of it, like, kind of, there's a lot of thought put into how those characters sort of bounce off each other in that regard. Like the fact that Marcus still calls him James.
Yeah.
Like, even though he's JD to everybody else.
Yep.
And you assume that probably he goes by JD because he hates the fact that his dad calls him James.
Yeah. It's great.
There's a lot to it.
I like how
which is not a thing I ever thought I'd say about Gears of War.
No. I mean, just also as you play through the game, you have a robot companion named Jack.
Which I'm glad is back because he was missing from 4.
Right.
And they not only brought back Jack, which was one of my favorite little things that no one really takes note of from the original games, but Jack is like a big part of the progression, and like he's a big gameplay element.
They do a great job humanizing him. Like, there's one scene where like he's trapped out and a trap door is about to shut, and most of the team is like, "Who gives a crap?" But like the guy who owns him is like, "No, that's like, it's my bro. Like, we got to let him in." And like he gets in the door just at the last minute, and it's interesting to see everyone's reactions. Some people are
what Kate says, "Who gives a shit?" Well, that's Dave, their first robot.
Yeah.
And he says, she says, "Who gives a shit? He's a robot." And Del says, "That's not his fault."
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, what an interesting response to like that's a like there's no argument against it. It's like, yeah, because they do seem to have some measure of sentience, at least on the level of like a dog.
Yeah.
And then the new one you get, Jack, is a new build from Baird.
Yep.
And they get facial expressions out of 4 lenses on the end of his face. Like, they just rotate, and you get like mad, and you get happy, and I mean, it's amazing what they do with that.
I mean, let's just say this game is on Xbox One is like a technical marvel.
It is. I mean, this is one of the best looking games I've ever played.
Seriously,
without any question.
It is Xbox One's. Technically, it is Xbox One's God of War. It is so far beyond like what we've seen on this platform. Like, I'm playing it. All this footage, by the way, base Xbox One.
Wow.
None of this is X. This is base Xbox One.
Impressive.
And it still runs like grease lightning. Now, they cheat. My biggest complaint about this game is that, unlike God of War, it does not reinvent the franchise as far as level design, game design, progression, all the stuff, like the nuts and bolts of a game. It's still pretty much the same.
It's a refinement, not a reinvention.
Yeah, I mean, there's a pseudo open world. Like, eventually you get a skiff, which is that air powered like snowboard thing that you've seen in all the trailers.
Which is more like in Uncharted 4. Really.
Yeah,
it's more
that's a good comparison.
It's like an open area with points of interest.
Yeah. It's not an open world. That's just one big open space where you can go anywhere you want. There are very defined levels that you go through.
You find little points of interest that are usually marked by these yellow flags.
Yep.
And then you hop over a thing, and you kind of fight you fight a fight, and you find some stuff, and then you leave it and get back on the skiff and ride around. Like, it's basically like they've taken a bunch of little handcrafted side missions and plopped them down in a big empty map.
Right, and then you just travel with the skiff from one to the other, and then
which is fun. Like, I enjoy this. The skiff looks cool. The snow stuff is neat. The persistence of the footprints and the skid prints in the snow is crazy.
Oh my God!
It stays forever. Like,
so I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually forgot to put that in my notes, and I have a ton of notes about this game. But there was one part of the game where I got spun around and didn't know which way to go, and I looked at the snow, and I could see the footprints where I had come into the area, and I'm like, well, I gotta go the other way. And absolutely, you're right, man. The snow and the deformation in this game, amazing. It looks so freaking good. This whole game looks good, man. The environmental destruction, like, that seems to be like a focus for them in this game. And it's just all over the place. Like, the world is always crumbling down all around you. Like, we talked about how we saw Gears 4.
I did that same thing there.
Oh, really?
Like, they want you to stealth kill with B, but
no way, I'm sawing him. Yeah.
That is one weird thing about it, where like switching the chainsaw to right bumper trips me up constantly.
It takes me a while, absolutely. What was I saying before, though?
You're talking about snow skiff and footprints and environmental stuff and the destruction of the environment, and things are falling apart all the time.
Yeah, I can't remember where I was going after that, though. I got distracted.
I don't know. But it is very impressive debris, and even when just like kind of, like, we've seen thousands of levels collapse
Yeah.
But this one,
it's just constant.
But like the detail on it and the there's something just like visceral.
Well, then there's the one section
works.
where you're hiking up the mountain covered in snow, and the gigantic boulders just start rolling down the mountainside. Like, it's pretty insane, man. Like, this game is gorgeous. Like, I can't imagine playing on an X. Like, it's blowing my mind on the base Xbox One.
I mean, this doesn't look too far off from
really.
I mean, the X seems to have like some more details on the foliage.
Oh, I remember now what I was saying.
And I mean, the X, I don't know what the frame rate is here, but like the X is a butter 60 frames a second.
Yeah. The frame rate's rock solid. What I was going to say before was, remember at E3, was it you and I that went in and saw Gears 4 running in 4K in that crazy Atmos theater?
Yeah.
And remember how that game looked like a different game? Like, I can't imagine what this game is going to look like in the future. Like, it is, like you said, it's one of the best looking games ever made.
And also, I mean, the biggest change probably from what I'm seeing here is the fact that on my TV, it's got HDR.
Yeah.
And the HDR with the deeper blacks and I mean, especially in the dark areas where like you still see the details, but you don't see, it's still dark, and then like the light like illuminates it differently, and you fire the gun and it flashes and everything lights up like that. I mean, does it like change the fact that you're still doing basic Gears of War stuff over and over? No. But like, man, like the visuals just make it pop in a way that like the same way kind of God of War worked. Like, it was just like, it's like, you know, although God of War had more, you know, I mean, I never really played anything with that axe combat that really compares to that, but it was that same sort of thing of like the fidelity on display here makes this story that's already good feel even more interesting, feel even more sense of place
and believable.
And there's a lot to that, and just like the
creature design's great.
Creature design, the detail on like where a bullet hits and what it does when it hits, whether it goes into flesh, whether it bounces off, or whether it like damages the armor, like it's
or
crazy.
Knocks a piece of armor off,
it's ridiculous.
It really is. I've been shocked by this game, how good it looks. So there you go. If you're looking for a technical showcase for your Xbox One, here it is. No matter how jaded you think you are over video game graphics, this game's going to make your jaw drop.
Yeah.
And over again, I would add.
And I wonder what it's going to look like on the Scarlet.
I can't even... That's what I was getting at when I was talking about how we went and saw that in that 4K theater, and we were like, oh, that looks like a different game. What's this going to look like on Scarlet?
Yeah. I mean, this thing already on my 4K TV, like, you know, even in a way that 4 didn't, it has that moving painting quality to it.
I'm sure some people are playing this on PC and they're sitting there right now saying, I've already seen it, Shane. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, the PC with like the extra, I mean, I've seen like a lot of clips of that, and sort of the image quality is definitely there in a way that it's not on the Xbox. But I don't have, you know, I have a powerful PC, but my cards don't do the weird little tricks that the new stuff does, so I'm sticking to Xbox.
You don't have ray tracing yet.
But very well. I mean, it doesn't reinvent the wheel, but like, it's one hell of a ride.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
far.
And look, the way it's paced is just crazy.
Yeah,
like, as soon as something happens,
it doesn't feel like that thing that Gears 4 and Halo 4 and 5 did, where it's just like, get on with it. Like,
there's none of that.
4 had that thing where it's like you were just constantly trying to rescue someone, either Marcus or Kate's mother, and like that's the whole story.
Yeah.
But like they're finally delving into kind of what the world is, what these creatures are, why it's happening, what happened to Kate, why all this, you know. Again, the most interesting part of Gears of War is the literal last shot.
Yeah.
Where you see the back of the amulet.
Yep.
Which is revealed to be the locust symbol.
Yep.
And so now this game deals with the fallout of that. The one thing I will say is Kate is continually, because she's connected to the locust queen thing, she's continually having these like headaches and visions, and she keeps going like that, and like everyone's like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I'm like, have you people ever seen a movie?
Yeah.
If someone is continually getting headaches and saying they're fine, they're not fine. And it's going to kill you later. Like,
it's going to get way worse.
I mean, at one point there's a 4-month jump here, and she's still doing that, and Dell's like, are you okay? I'm like, it's been like a year,
and
dude.
You're still asking? Like, she's not okay, bro.
Take her to the doctor or something. Like, you got to have some services around here,
well, she keeps saying she's going to go, and then she never goes.
There's a point at which Marcus Phoenix just needs to take the children to the doctor.
Yeah. The pacing of this game, though, literally, like, a piece of dialogue finishes, and then, like, an explosion happens. And then they're like, what is that? And then it just takes you on this whole other track down the next scenario, basically. It's just relentless. It never lets up.
They're always moving you forward. They're always putting you in a different environment. Like, it's the pacing not just the pacing in terms of like kind of like, oh, the set pieces happen one after another, but the pacing in terms of
everything.
Like what you're doing and why you're doing it shifts from a story angle in a way that no major Microsoft game has in years. Like, I hope the Halo Infinite guys are paying attention to how they wrote this.
Yeah, well, you're also talking about, like, you've talked a bunch about how you don't like the enemies in the last couple of Halo games, and now they're repetitive. I mean, this game is just, even though there aren't like 50 different types of enemies as far as, like, classes of enemies, the way that the plot and the story cycles you through them, you never are fighting the same enemy for, like, an hour straight. It's like you're always cycling through like everything that the game has. Like it's just very well shuffled, paced very well.
And they think about like they'll throw a different type of enemy at you after like a bunch of others, and you're like, oh, I'm not equipped for this. But if you look around properly, you'll find
you can find it. They'll have the weapons there that you need to get through it. I mean, just the robot Jack, like that's a whole other layer of.
Oh, I love the spark traps.
Yeah, they're great.
So good.
So you can use him to do all kinds of stuff. He can just fetch stuff. So if you see a weapon or a pickup that's like across a ravine and you don't want to waste your time trying to figure out how to get there, or maybe you can't get there, you can send him to pick it up. He opens door latches, he attacks, he defends, he heals, he revives.
Like the Jack stuff is like really clever, but at the same time, like playing, I'm like, I can't believe they didn't do this in like Gears 2.
Yeah,
like it
was
seems
right
so
there.
obvious.
Yeah,
in hindsight.
Maybe they tried and they're just like, we can't get it to work. I don't know.
But it was always so weird in the old games where like they have an invisible robot that opens doors for them, that's with them all the time, and it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, well now he does.
Now he does tons. He's a character in the game, and he's a force on the battlefield, and it's great.
Yeah, it's a little clunky using him. I guess that's one thing I would say. I never feel like I've got it nailed.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to cram it into the interface, and it mostly works, but here and there you get some hiccups. I will say that the main issue, the only issue I've had with this game is, I've
had a lot. I do have a list of issues, but I wanted to gush over it first.
Now, to be fair, I've only played campaign. I didn't play any multiplayer yet.
Yeah.
But so I was playing, and I'm a collectible guy. I'm a collectible stuff, so I'm picking up all the collectibles, and I'm picking up all the components, which is what you use to upgrade Jack.
Yep.
And at
one point, a pretty big tree for Jack.
Oh yeah,
I might add.
And at one point, I accidentally moved on to the next chapter without picking up all the stuff I wanted to pick up. So I backed out.
On my list of complaints.
So I backed out, and I restarted the previous chapter so I could go through and pick up all the stuff. And when I did that, all the components I picked up for Jack were gone.
What? Oh, we haven't even gotten to the fact that this game has.
Everything was gone. And basically everything from that chapter was gone, and like basically, but then I had a certain amount of components, but not the amount of components I should have had at that point.
That sucks.
And then it turned out that some of the upgrades on Jack were upgraded. I hadn't upgraded anything, but there were upgrades that had been chosen and upgraded for me, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I added it all up and refunded the points, and it added up to how many I was supposed to have at that point.
So they had spent them for you.
They had spent them for it, but then if I go back to the previous chapter, all those components are back again.
What?
But then if I go back to the main menu and look at my collectibles there, it lists all the components I picked up as picked up.
This game is hard crashed.
I don't know how you screw up collectible tracking in a game this crazy ambitious in terms of tech, and like that's what goes wrong. I mean, apparently, so I don't know for sure, but what I was reading on Reddit and stuff was that the component tracking and the collectible tracking like failing like that is apparently part of the fact that they keep the saves as part of like the connected to the server thing, and because the servers are so unreliable right now that if you can lose connection and not realize you've lost connection, and if they don't save the collectible or the component through that, it cannot register on certain parts of the game. But
I've had it crash out to the dashboard like 5 times.
So basically, I haven't had any crashes. I've seen our friend Mike Benson. Yeah. He sent me a little video of his character disappearing, and it's just a gun floating in midair.
I've had lots of little stuff like that.
So I haven't had any glitches like that. My only problem has been it screwed up the collectibles and the component and the collectibles. I don't care that much about because it's just a thing. It's just a
You can completely respect
them, but I'm still missing some stuff I picked up. And so the problem is like, well, I can't fully upgrade Jack if it keeps doing that. So it kind of put a damper on my enthusiasm for the Jack aspect of things. And not that I use him all the time or anything, but like
I use them at least once every battle.
It bugs me that like I spent all this time looking for these components, and now a bunch of them don't exist, or I got to go back and play it again. And one of the one main thing I would have to play again is the first chapter of Act 2, which is mostly like walking slowly through a town.
Yeah,
and it's just like I don't want to do all that.
There's some good battles in that little section though too.
After you walk slowly through the town, yes, it picks up.
It picks up quick too. There's some crazy battles on that street out there, but. Yeah, I've had it crashed into the dashboard at least 5 times. I've had all kinds of weird bugs. A lot of times the game will snap out of them, which is really weird. Like, stuff will disappear, and I'm like, oh, I might have to reset, and then it'll appear. I had quests, like, where things didn't spawn that you needed to complete the quests. Like, there was one room you walk into, and there's a terminal that you need to use, and the terminal never activated for Jack, so he could never interact with it, so I had to go back to the checkpoint. Now, the good news is... this game is crazy checkpoint happy. Like, even when I've had these problems, I think I've literally lost like 5 minutes of my time max. So for me personally, it hasn't been that bad as far as like, oh my god, I just spent all this time playing and it's all worthless or it's ruined or whatever. The checkpoints and the saves, now here's a cool feature too. In big battles, like your team is like, what do you want? What kind of support do you want? And like what do you usually choose? I usually choose the big like dude that comes in and just wrecks shop.
I tend to forget what the names of them are.
I do too, but I always end up choosing like the big dude that just drops down out of the sky and just starts destroying the enemy. Like,
well, I'd love to get that giant mech back from the end of 4.
Yeah, well,
maybe eventually.
Yeah,
I've seen a couple of them wrecked in places.
Yeah, they're in the game, but whether you get to control them or not, we'll leave that up to for people to discover on their own. Now, I have a litany of issues with the game that I've uncovered, but I wanted to express how much I have enjoyed playing this game before I start nitpicking it. So the loading times are abysmal. Maybe that's not a problem on the X.
Yeah,
on the base Xbox One, when you load the game up for the first time, it takes 3 minutes and 20 seconds.
It did take a long time to load up the first time I started it up, and then like it finally got into the tutorial and like
that tutorial that they force you to go through. Yeah. That's a terrible decision. That should be completely optional. Like,
well, you can skip it.
How?
I think you have to just go to the menu and quit out or whatever.
Oh, I thought you had to complete X number of them before it would let you skip out.
No, it would.
Because I hit start and it wouldn't let me like.
It definitely offered to let me skip it, I think, but I didn't skip it. I just played it.
I played it. It was awful. My biggest complaint with this, and again, this is a problem that Gears has had for a long time, is inconsistent traversal. So there are so many walls, windows, things that you should be able to climb up, on, in, around, but the game is just like, no, you can't go in there. There's invisible walls like all over the place. Again, it's been a part of Gears all along, but this is to my point of like, this needs to evolve like God of War did. Like it's been so long. It needs to find what its next paradigm is. And this game does absolutely not find it. Adding a robot buddy to everything does not change the fundamentals of the game. And we've been playing this same thing now for what? Now 6 entries. There was Judgment. Actually, is it 7?
No, it's 6.
6. So as I've sat and watched Assassin's Creed and God of War and all these games evolve into something different and so much better, this game is just like, it's like the pinnacle of what they've been doing all along, I guess is the best way that I can put it.
Sort of. I will say this as someone who did play the whole series before this came out. They have evolved it.
Yeah.
Go back and play Gears 1 and 2.
No, sure. Like I get that.
The game plays so much better than... I mean, there's a point at which you'd have to reinvent it on the level of what God of War did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But why would you do that? Because then it's not Gears anymore.
I mean, why would they do that with God of War? Then it's not God of War anymore.
Well, because there's multiple ways to hit things with a blade, basically. I don't know how you reinvent Gears and keep it Gears. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, you can give it an open world. You can give it more latitude in the level design. You can Make it so you can actually climb and go anywhere in the game instead of having to put up these false barricades to keep you from going there.
I haven't run into much of that. Like
it's all over.
I haven't seen.
You haven't seen windows where they're right at like waist height and it won't let you climb into the window.
Not that I wanted to climb into.
But there's the way they've designed the levels. You can see into the rooms. Like sometimes one of the windows will be busted out and you can see in there. It's like all lit, like it's an environment from the game, but it just says no, you're not going in there.
Well, usually that room is either somewhere I wouldn't care to go, or it's just like a place where you can send Jack to pick up a collectible.
Sometimes, and see so here's why it really bothers me. It's because this game has tons of collectibles. And
too many, really.
Too many. And so you're constantly looking around trying to find them.
Just Chapter 2, or Act 2 has something like 120 components for Jack's upgrades.
Yeah. You can find him anywhere.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
And you need all but like 30 to fully upgrade him.
And so, right. And so here's the thing. It's like you're always looking for stuff. So you're always trying to get in a window or through a crack or whatever. So when you see these windows, you're like, oh, I can get in there. It's like I said, inconsistent traversal mechanics. In this one area, I can climb through a window like that. In this other one, I can't. I know there's stuff everywhere that I need to collect.
I just have never run into that. Like, every time I see a window I can't climb into, visually I know I can't climb in it.
What is it that tips you off?
There's just like a standard set of parts in the game, and like if it's a window you can climb in, it has a certain squareness to it that a lot of the other windows don't have.
I have not picked up on that at all.
It's just, I've
just stopped looking because
I've played a whole fucking lot of Gears in the last couple months, and you just see.
Well, maybe that's part of
pieces.
Maybe that's part of it. You've been playing so much Gears. I have not, and I finally gave up and stopped.
Well, you might also be assuming that because of how good and how different some of this looks, that they might have also refined that, and they just haven't. It's just the same. It's still made of the same pieces.
My point is, most games don't do this anymore. Most games, you can go anywhere, and they give you the mechanics to climb and climb down, and this, again, it just feels, a lot of this game feels like the perfect version of Gears of War, but not something that has moved forward and moved past a lot of the tropes that the franchise has had for a long time. Again, I'm enjoying the crap out of it. It's a great game, but
I just don't know what you mean when you say, like, what should it do then?
I should be able to go anywhere. I should be able to climb up walls. I should be able to climb through window. If there's a window, I should be able to shoot out the window and climb through it. Particularly when, as you said, in a lot of those rooms that they don't let you go into, you can send the robot through the window to go fetch stuff for you, but you can't go in there. Like,
I don't care about that.
I do care.
I don't know why that's a thing.
I care about consistency in the universe and the world. That's all I'm saying. It's inconsistent.
Well, there's nothing inconsistent about the idea that you can't go in every room. Like, that's true in reality too. Like, I can't get into every house I see.
Only if the doors are locked.
And so they are. I guess you could just jump through the window.
90,000 times in this game, they bust through doors. Like, that's what I'm talking about. It's inconsistent. It doesn't do the same thing every time in every environment. I don't think that that's up for debate. It's a fact. Whether it bothers you or not, that's up to you. It does bother me. Melee still feels like crap to me. Like, the B button is melee, and you just start slashing with the knife. It just feels like a lot like Breakpoint. It just feels completely random whether you actually kill somebody with it or not.
Most things I've seen die in 2 hits from that. I think that's only there because the old melee was so effectively useless.
Yeah.
Like, separating it out from kind of the chainsaw makes it at least a more reliable way to get someone off you without having to rev up. I think that's what I don't agree with, making the chainsaw button the same as the reload button, because that has gotten me confused.
There's a lot of buttons that have double duty, and that was my next point. It drives me crazy. Like, a lot of several of the buttons will do 2 different things, and whether you hold it long enough or whether you just tap it, it changes its functionality. Like, a lot of times, like, the bayonet or the chainsaw bayonet is you just said that, is right bumper. That's also used for something else, and you'll end up doing something else.
You reload when you mean to rev up, basically.
Exactly, yeah. And that's important because you have active reload in this game, and it'll start reloading. You're not prepared for the active reload. You miss it.
And then you're like, oh, no, I wanted to rev the chainsaw, but instead of revving the chainsaw, you screw up the active reload. Now you got to wait even longer, and by that point, you've already been hit in the head or something.
Yeah. So look, these are nitpicks. This game is great. It's really fun to play, but look, there are certain things that people get hung up on that are deal breakers for them, and I want to make sure I mention them all. Like I said, I had a bunch of hard crashes. The collectibles are kind of front-loaded. Like the first couple acts, there's tons of collectibles. As the game goes on, they become more and more scarce, which seems weird.
That's always kind of been how they worked. Like usually the first act has a lot more in both. Was it certainly 3 and 4? The components, on the other hand, which are not tracked as the way collectibles are, but are what you use to upgrade Jack. Those things just keep on trucking. Like they're everywhere.
And as you get farther into the game, when you pick up one, you'll actually get like 5 or 6.
Yeah, they start to have like packs of 3.
Yeah.
And so even like every in the first open area, every little side thing has a 3-pack of components you can find somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's an interesting. My main, I guess, nitpick would be that it's an interesting shift to kind of the Uncharted style of giving you a little more freedom to explore an area, but it's very much the same vein. That guy running in the corner, I like that. It's very much the same vein as Uncharted in that it's just like, we are going to give you these very compartmentalized areas, and that's really all there was.
We'll
to
give
it.
you the illusion of an open world, but it's really not.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit like Breakpoint as well. I mean, what was it? My friend said that Breakpoint is Metal Gear Solid 5 if it didn't have a brain in its head. You're just kind of progressing from open area to point of interest, but then at the point of interest, there's nothing really interesting to do.
No, you're right. No, that's a good analogy.
There are more interesting things to do at Gears 5's points of interest, but it's not like it's a firefight or it's a boss fight or it's like a little thing and then you get rewarded with usually a Jack upgrade and then like maybe some components and some ammo to make up for what you use to get through the boss fight, and that's about it. Like that's basically all you're doing, and like it's just this side of compelling. Like it's just on the edge of like, I don't know if I care or not, but I'm still doing it.
The game is fun. That's why. I mean, it's not even mindless fun. Like this game's got a heart. Unlike most Gears, it's weird to even say that about a Gears of War game. Yeah. This game has got a heart to it. It makes you want to keep playing it. It makes you want to find out what happens to all the characters, and the in-between stuff is fun and exciting. And
I think it's officially Microsoft's best story of all their in-house properties.
That'll change quickly with the new studios it has, I think. But
here and there, yeah.
But right now,
I think Gears finally beat Halo.
Yeah.
I mean,
that wasn't a very high bar.
But like Halo used to have a really interesting story until the end of 3. And then, but the idea that Gears would have had a compelling story at all was a little ridiculous for a while.
Yeah.
It is the template for the dude bro shooter, Yeah. But there's a lot more to this one.
This is not dude bro.
No. Not at all. In fact,
Cliffy may be disappointed by this game.
In fact, in some ways,
it's like you're off brand.
In some ways, it's a response to of the stereotypes that people hold about this series.
Yeah. I just feel like this is the last time they can kind of get away with this old design. Like maybe for Scarlet, they finally do like a big reboot of the franchise. I don't think that they can make this design any better. I think this is just it.
Yeah, I mean, this might just be Gears. Like I don't know what else you can really do without. I mean, you can streamline how the environments are built so it's not as obvious what's cover and what's interactable and that kind of thing. You can, expand the environment so it feels less like kind of a by rote open world area, I guess.
Cattle shoot. I mean, this is this is the classic cattle shoot level design.
It's just a point. It's like, you can only reinvent Uncharted so much.
Yeah.
You couldn't really do a God of War style reinvention of Uncharted either.
You could definitely make it open world and make it work.
But like, does it need to be that? Like, I don't feel like the open world stuff in this really adds a whole lot.
Well, no, I think the open world stuff in this is all tacked on.
Right. But like, is that really the direction I'd like to see them go with this? Not really.
It is for me.
Absolutely. I'd rather see them continue to refine sort of the story-driven sections and like kind of the set-piece moments and integrating that with like this much better. I don't know who wrote this.
There's the destruction we were talking about earlier. It just happens all the time.
But like they finally got the writing down, and I'd like to see them work more towards using the environments and to tell the stories.
They need to hire that writer to write Halo. Is what they need to do. Whoever it is.
I mean, I don't know how that works. If
I don't either, but they need to do it.
But like, at the very least, I would let the writers of this game like read the Halo Infinite script and give some feedback. Like
Yeah.
they clearly know how to structure something like this properly.
Yep. Now, we haven't talked about multiplayer and horde mode this episode. We'll probably touch on it next Tuesday, but I have kind of discussed it already when I was in the beta. I talked about it. I guess the one thing I would say is if you're hinging your purchase on multiplayer, just know that there's really nothing innovative about it at all. They made a big hoopla about it, like, before E3 and everything, but the horde mode, I think, might be a little worse than prior horde modes. It's definitely not any better. And some of the other new modes that they've debuted to me are just kind of trash. The competitive stuff, you know, it's the same, but prettier and faster. So I wouldn't say that, like, don't buy it because the multiplayer is so bad. Just don't expect a lot of changes or innovation or anything different. But the campaign... I mean, I think the campaign is almost worth the price of the game alone, especially when you consider you can play it for $12. It's like you get Game Pass for a month, you buy the Ultimate Pass for $2, that you get the Ultimate Pass for $2 for 2 months, and you're playing Gears 5 for $12. I mean, that is a no-brainer. In fact, I would just say right now, everyone who owns an Xbox should go get this game. Go get it on Game Pass for $12.
As long as you're willing to play a shooter.
Yeah. I mean, if you like Gears and go get it. Like, it's a no frickin' brainer for $12.
And even if you haven't played Gears 4 or whatever, like, they have previously on things
it's like
to
a
catch
10-minute catch-up video.
And, well, I mean, the catch-up video on Gears 4 is pretty short. It's like, it's just like, they went and found Marcus, and the
She's
swarm
having
came back,
headaches
and she found her mom, and the end.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of actually betrays that not much happened in Gears 4.
It does, which is accurate. So
it's...
but I think both of us thumbs up for this game. Yeah. It's better than I thought it was going to be. I would argue the reviews are probably a little low on this.
Yeah, I mean, I can see, like, not being enthralled by the multiplayer. Like, it certainly hasn't tempted me into that space much.
Yeah.
But the campaign is fantastic.
It is,
man.
It's
really
well
done.
It is really, really good.
I honestly didn't know if any of Microsoft's first parties had it in them anymore.
I didn't either.
But,
I'm starting to wonder. Coalition, though.
They did it.
They nailed it. So I see the JBone29 says, LOL, the multiplayer and Horde are fairly different. I would like to hear why you believe that. If you want to add a note, actually, we're about to jump to our Q&A, so maybe you can type it in and we'll bring it up when we get to the Q&A. So anyway, there's our takes on the Gears 5 campaign. Both of us love it. We're having a blast with it. I'm almost done. You're about halfway, I think.
In.
Yeah, it's great. If anyone's hating on it, don't listen to the haters. All right, it's time for our trailer of the week. Tokyo Game Show is coming up. It kicks off on Thursday. As always, you want to be on SIFTD.net. We have all the big media, all the big streams, gameplay, trailers, streamers, YouTubers, all that stuff from TGS will be all over the site. We have a top 10 most anticipated games of Tokyo Game Show coming up. In fact, it might be sitting in my inbox right now. So when I get back from this, I should be able to publish it pretty quickly. But Tokyo Game Show is coming up, and undoubtedly one of the biggest games is a game that we talked about last week, which is the next game, kind of, in the Resident Evil franchise. It's called Project Resistance, and they've unveiled the debut trailer. Let's take a look. All right, so what do you think about that, Matt? What do you think about them, like, I don't know. I always looked at Mr. X as, like, pretty much a zombie, but maybe a little smarter. But now he's like a ringleader of, like, a...
I could like not Saul. Possibly care less. X gonna give it to you, and that's all I know. That's all I know.
It's like Saul, kinda. It's like you've trapped these teenagers in these like death rooms, and you have
Saw. Okay, yeah.
And you have like the control.
I think it's just Saul. You and your Pennsylvania accent.
Better call Saul.
Saul. I'm like Saul. Who's Saul? Like,
how should I say Saul?
You can't say it anyway. You just have you have an L at the end of your aw words. You always say. Everyone from that part of the country has it.
So how do you say it?
Saw. I don't have an L.
Saw.
You say Saul, and Abby does it too. Like anyone.
How do you say it again?
Saw.
Saw.
Yeah. Saw. There's no L in that word. You say Saul or
Saul.
Saul. Yeah.
That's a W though.
But you have an L sort of sound coming out.
Interesting.
It's like how Australians, when they say like an open like O, like no, they have a kind of an R sound. Like no.
Sa.
Okay.
Anyway, it's like Sa, but in Resident Evil. And he's like supposed to be the genius ringleader.
I don't know. Maybe there's some dude named Saul. I was like, is there a smart guy named Saul, like a mastermind named Saul in Resident Evil? I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. So anyway, that is Project Resistance.
Oh, that's West Virginia? Okay. Well, I don't know. I know people from PA that say it like that too.
We also say Wooder. If you're from Philadelphia,
you
Abby,
say
Wooder. W-U-D-D-E-R.
One of her favorite things about living in England is that no one calls her out on the Wooder thing because they just think she talks weird in general.
That is definitely not going to be, even if that's like its working title, it's not going to be a Resident Evil : something.
No, it's clearly exactly what we thought it was.
It's so far away from Resident Evil.
Some multiplayer Left 4 Dead-ish sort of thing, or what was the old one? The Outbreak? Was that?
Yeah. So it is what it is, but it is probably going to be one of the biggest games at TGS because they're like blowing it out with like stage demos. And all
I'm going to push the hell out of that. I'm going to push the hell out of Death Stranding. What is it, like 80 minutes of Death Stranding or something?
Yeah, they're going to show 80 minutes of Death Stranding. So look for that on the site.
Maybe now we'll understand what the hell it's about.
Probably still
because apparently Kojima doesn't get it. You see that tweet? Where he's like, I don't really understand it. I'm just like, what?
First, I want to find the JBone29 since he called me out and he seems to think that. Here we go. They've added arcade mode, which that's what I was talking about. The new modes that they showed at E3. I don't know how much you've played of that, but it's not good. Which isn't just a shotgun fest. I would agree with you that one of the big issues with Gears multiplayer is that it's all shotgun rolling. But I don't know. I mean, that still happens a lot in arcade mode. Each character has a loadout and is more ranged focused, much more casual friendly. The characters in Horde mode each have different ultimate abilities. Yeah, we know all that. We've talked about that already. I don't think that changes any of them all that much. They definitely not for the better in a lot of cases. All right, let's get to some questions. Earth Demon.
Eth.
Oh, you're right. Has it been Eth Demon all along? And I've been calling him Earth Demon all along. Now that it's big enough so my bad eyes can see it. Eth Demon. I'm sorry for all this time calling you Earth Demon. Last week at PAX, the lead writer of Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers was brought to tears by a standing ovation. It was a great gaming moment.
We did talk about last week.
We did mention it. It was a great gaming moment. What are other great gaming community moments that come to mind for you two? I mean, Zelda at the Nintendo presser.
I guess when people freaked out about that.
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty crazy. I mean, that's the biggest group moment probably I've ever experienced.
I guess. I've always had a soft spot for that time that they had a funeral in a PvP zone in World of Warcraft, and they got raided. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I guess the Zelda thing's probably the only thing I was at personally.
I mean, yeah, and most of the stuff is Nintendo related because they're the only fans that are really passionate enough, I think, to kind of have those moments consistently. I think when Metroid Prime 4 was shown at the Nintendo store in New York, that viral video where everyone lost their minds.
But they lose their minds. I mean, they lost their minds when King Dedede was shown.
Yeah.
It's like, come on,
no, you're
guys,
right.
Get a grip. Nobody likes Kirby that much.
Yeah, I mean, I do love those moments, but honestly, our industry doesn't have that many of them.
Not really.
It really doesn't. Most of them are shame. Somebody did. No, seriously though, it's all about people making fun of somebody else. Ridge Racer,
giant enemy
crab, hit the weak point. It's always people making, and I don't think it's just our industry. It's just kind of like society now. People just enjoy flaming and making fun of other people more than anything else. I don't know why our society is twisted that way, but it is. Commander Fett 03, what is your underdog game going into the holiday season? I think Matt may have talked about his today.
Did I?
GreedFall.
GreedFall, yeah. I mean, it's already out, but
I mean, it's a fall game.
Today, but yeah, sorta, yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what else is coming out.
I mean, everybody knows mine already. You know what it is. What's the game I just said last week? I'm all over, and no one else seems to care.
I don't know.
Luigi's Mansion 3.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely my game.
I don't think I think sales for that are going to be very strong. I don't think you're alone on that one now.
It seems like I'm the only one who's excited for it.
I mean, you might be in terms of our circles. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably going to play it, but I'm not like. I mean, I forgot it existed until you mentioned it just now.
See.
But once it gets closer to Halloween, I'll be thinking about it more.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to look at a list, I guess, of what's coming out this fall.
Okay, here's one from Super Cordon Bleu. Smash Ultimate has over 80 plus characters at the moment, including DLC. Once the new DLC is released, Smash could have close to 100 characters. I don't understand why Smash fans still demand more from Sakurai. Where does a Smash sequel even go from here?
Well, because Smash fans are A, crazy, and B, know that there's always more characters.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I mean, there's a million ways.
There could be 1,000 characters in Smash.
Yeah, there's still thousands of video game characters left that have not been put into Smash.
For a sequel, I mean, I don't think you do sequels for Smash. I think you just keep Ultimate moving forward onto the next platform and add some more characters, add some more stages.
Scale it for the next console. And
that's your platform. I mean, think of it like World of Warcraft. Like, just keep moving it forward, keep building on it, but never restart it.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense. Eric Scott, thank you for subscribing via Twitch Prime. 15 months in a row. Thanks, brother. Derek D112. Oh, his Twitch account was hacked. He's now 112 instead of 111. Sorry to hear that, man. You had your name for a long time. Do you guys see any games this year that has already come out or is supposed to come out this fall that could compete with last year's best, like God of War, Red Dead 2, and Spider-Man for the best game of the past 2 years? So game of the GOTLY. Star Wars might have a shot, but there's been nothing so far, in my opinion. Gears 5 sounds good, but not Game of the Year. I'd agree with that with Gears 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gears definitely has a shot at like Campaign of the Year.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see. I admit, I am hoping that Jedi Fallen Order nails it. Because that would be
I hope
candidate.
It's one of those candidates. I hope that it is a candidate.
Certainly Titanfall 2 was.
Yeah.
Even if you're just limited to the campaign and the storytelling, because they did a really good job with that. So,
for sure.
Fingers crossed there. I really hope the Outer Worlds is something good, although it didn't
has a lot of promise.
Didn't demo very well at E3 in terms of kind of stability, but like. And I know Obsidian is not the Obsidian they were with Chris Avellone involved, but like I'm hoping that they still pull something interesting out. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that's really on my radar that screams possible Game of the Year.
I mean, we also kind of talked about this last week, and we're like, hey, look, Resident Evil 2, the remake, is actually like still up there.
I mean,
it's not been a great year for Game of the Year candidates. It's been a great year for games.
Certainly not for what you'd call like, I don't know, like AAA prestige games or something.
I mean honestly, a lot of it is because a first-party Sony game hasn't come out other than Days Gone.
I mean, I guess there's the off chance that Death Stranding isn't a giant mess. There's also, I mean, I'm sure that will be the default game of the year for Kojima fans, whether it's good or not. But like, you know, Sword and Shield has potential. I hope Shenmue 3 doesn't suck. Doom Eternal could catch me off guard and be the most fun I had all year. Like, I'm not going to count that one out. But yeah, I mean, it's a more muted year than last year. I mean, last year just had, I mean, you don't get a God of War and a Spider-Man every year. You know, like it's.
We got a Red Dead. That's once every 8 years, at least, at like best. Let's see.
This year is, I think, just sort of an off year in some ways, especially because last year we had all those amazing first-party games and Red Dead and such, and then next year we got new systems. Like 2019 just doesn't compare.
Yeah.
But there's still some good stuff.
Yeah, the Japanese dude says, Kojima said he doesn't exactly know how to categorize Death Stranding's genre. We're all right there with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he likes it that way. I think he wants people.
He likes to make up new words for things. And
yeah.
I mean, it's not like tactical espionage action means anything either. We've just heard it so much that we just think, oh, that's what Metal Gear is.
Yeah. Mike's Q, did you guys discuss the Alec Howlaka situation, or is that too charged to constructively discuss? We did bring it up last week.
Yeah, I don't really see what else there is to say about it.
Yeah, there's not really much to add. It's an unfortunate situation, to say the least. And it looks like it's it. Perfect. Right at 4 o'clock. So there you go. That's GameFace episode 181. Again, we are on iTunes. Head on to you can Google it. We're the first result that comes up. Just search SIFTD iTunes or GameFace iTunes. It'll pop right up. Even if you watch the show on SIFTD or on our Patreon, we'd appreciate it if you could leave us a review and a rating. It helps with the podcast bubbling up. Also, look in the next week for us to appear on Android, which has been a long time coming. So all of you guys who use Android phones, you'll be able to get our podcast there as well. Folks who are watching on YouTube, thank you for your support. It'd be great if you can help us out with Twitch Prime. If you can't, share the show. If you like the show, share it. Share it on Twitter. Share it on Facebook. Share it on YouTube. If you have other podcasts you like and you're on there and you're like, hey, here's other podcasts you guys might like, share it. It can make a big difference for us. So I think that's it. We'll be back next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat place. We'll be talking Borderlands 3 and probably another gaggle of awesome games. Everyone have a great week. We'll see you next time. GameFace is up and out.